Feel like pulling off a heist? Well, you better not plan it on the same night as another robbery. It's time once again for WrestleMania, as we take a look at Empire State featuring Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, today on Nothing Movies.
However you wish to self-identify, and welcome back to Nothing Movies, where we ask the question, the f*** is this? Old podcast title, new podcast catchphrase. It's the podcast where we go through an actor's filmography and choose 3 of the most anonymous and culturally untalked about movies that they've made, and decide whether or not they've got a certain something, or if they're just a whole lot of nothing. I'm Kaz Lesgard.
And my name's Jameson Rafter.
And my name's Kaz Lesgard.
You
always gotta do it a little bit differently, don't you?
Well, yeah.
You gotta establish yourself as the other guy in the room.
Well, yeah. You leave that opening for me to do. What do you want? Like, you've already said so much. I have to get my words in some way.
Okay.
All right.
We can talk about this after the episode.
What, is that a threat?
It's not a threat.
It's a promise.
It's a promise.
I hate it when you guys fight. Why can't we all just get along, man?
Well, we're in a combative mood because, once again, it's WrestleMania!
That is correct. It is WrestleMania once again. For those of you who are fans of our old podcast, The Fuck Is This? Every year around the 5th month of the year,
otherwise known as May.
Otherwise known as May,
really burying the lead.
Burying the lead. We focus entirely on movies that star wrestlers. It is the mini-series where we really have to emphasize one specific part of the title, otherwise it's just the thing that exists.
Right you are, Kat.
Well said. Well said.
Yeah. Indeed, yes.
It keeps the WWE litigators at bay.
Yes. For some of you who are maybe a little confused right now, what we promised last episode, the 2 things we promised last episode,
I made no promises,
were the continuation of the Linda Hamilton miniseries, and also just a generalized, better quality of podcast sounding, and both of those things aren't happening anymore.
We are not men of our word here.
No, we are not. We are not in Podstream today because it's the Easter long weekend, and one of the pod streamers is with his family, and the other one is in Vegas. We'll let you guess which one. And yes, as we mentioned also, we knew we probably weren't going to get through Linda Hamilton before we started WrestleMania. We thought we were going to get at least one more in. We didn't even get that far. No, we got too caught up with other shit.
I'm okay with that, though, because, it's more time I have to, do some research on Linda Hamilton.
Fair enough. Yeah, we can actually watch some more things. So just imagine that
it's like when a test gets delayed.
So just imagine right now that the Linda Hamilton miniseries is in the center ring, and they're sort of,
it's a Royal Rumble.
They're negging the crowd, and everyone's booing the Linda Hamilton miniseries. And then what's that? Jameson, what's that music?
That's so cool.
It's the WrestleMania! Oh, it's coming down to the ring right now. This is pandemonium, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, the Linda Hamilton miniseries is getting slammed into the ring. Oh, it's a suplex. Oh, it's running back into the dressing room. And I don't think we'll see the Linda Hamilton miniseries for quite some time.
Well, you really took that metaphor.
It's great, yeah. I'm kicking myself because now that's more work that I have to do. I have to add in some music now. I wasn't planning on doing that later. Yes.
Something like that.
This other voice you're hearing, by the way, is our illustrious guest who is joining us on this episode. He is an actor and a Vancouver-based theater artist from the Mansquito episode. Zach Scott is back. Hi, buddy. How you doing?
Hello, I'm good. Good to be here. Thank you for having me back. It had been a while you hadn't called. I figured maybe I was blacklisted from the podcast. So it's nice to be here.
No, not a single guest is blacklisted from the podcast.
But you guys aren't above anybody.
We are running out of people to ask to do this. There are a couple of new people who have said maybe. As of right now, my list of potential guests are just big question marks.
I'm surprised you haven't blacklisted us after the whole mosquito match.
After we made you watch that.
Don't get me wrong, that was truly a piece of shit. But it was fun to watch and talk about.
Well, the movie we're discussing today is maybe slightly better than Mosquito
I
Man.
don't even know.
Okay.
It's
always fun when I don't know what your opinions on the movie is going to be before we start recording. Because we haven't talked about it.
I didn't want to talk about it at all. I wanted to save it all for the podcast.
Absolutely, yes.
Here we are. My take right off the top.
We should say the movie we're discussing is 2013's Empire State. We'll get into why we've discussed this, but like what is your generalized thought?
If I had to give it like one general note, it would be bad.
Okay.
I think that would be like my one.
If I had to give it a second note, it would be not good.
Yes.
It would...
Yeah. Like very bad. Unnecessary comes to mind.
Unnecessary is an excellent word to describe.
I think like what comes to mind is that the movie is an hour 30 and you easily could have got 30 minutes out of it. I feel like that says something about it, you know what I mean?
Or potentially, if I might offer a counter, add 15 minutes into it, and then possibly it might make it a better movie.
It might.
Because there's a lot of like minutia and like story beats that are just flat out missing from this movie.
Yeah. That's the thing.
Yeah,
I feel like
it's too short.
Did they run out of budget or something? Because
possibly, or they just...
Because it all went towards The Rock, probably.
Yeah. Well, he worked like 3 days. It was probably paying about $5 million for that movie, truly.
So I should back up a little bit here. So on WrestleMania, we watch movies that star wrestlers, but because the podcast now is focused a little more on the anonymous films that actors make within their filmography that just fully don't exist. No one ever talks about them. No one ever speaks about them. I thought this would be a good opportunity for this year's WrestleMania for us to focus on what I consider anyway, the big three. There are 3 wrestlers turned actors who are currently working in Hollywood right now that are heads and tails more successful than any other wrestlers turned actors in the industry. I'm of course talking about Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, Dave Bautista,
and Andrew Garfield.
Most
people don't know that he got his start on WrestleMania. He was a big WWE guy.
Well, he was Spider-Man.
He was Spider-Man.
He fought Bonesaw McGraw.
That's right, he did fight Bonesaw McGraw.
That was Tobey Maguire.
That was Toby. That was the other.
It's all the multiverse.
They're all Spider-Man.
It all blends together now. Like John Cena was the third one.
Okay, John Cena
is the third one in that trifecta. So this year for WrestleMania, we're going to be looking at the nothing movies of those 3 gentlemen, and I picked 2013's Empire State, which is a movie that The Rock is in for some reason.
Yeah, what? That was my first.
We're gonna get to the bottom of it, hopefully.
Well, I'm surprised that you were even able to find a movie that The Rock is in that wasn't just a super mega well-known blockbuster.
It's not easy. Not easy to do.
I will say though, because I was like Empire State, and this is in 2013, so this isn't like before The Rock really hit it. You know what I mean? Like he wasn't even billed as The Rock anymore. He's Dwayne Johnson in the movie.
This is post Talking Tall. This is like around the time that he joined the Fast and the Furious franchise.
Yeah, this is post Fast and Furious.
Let's talk
Fast and Furious.
Let's talk, since we're on this subject, let's talk about Dwayne Johnson's 2013. 2013 is one of the biggest years he had in terms of the amount of movies he was in that got released. As you mentioned, 2 years previous to this, he had joined the Fast and the Furious franchise with Fast 5, which was a bit of a career bump for him. He was kind of doing some lame shit at the time, and it was sort of the addition of The Rock to the Fast franchise that kind of gave him a kick in the ass and also gave that franchise a kick in the ass as well, too.
Yeah.
So, 2013, he has 5 movies out.
Jesus.
He is in a movie that potentially could be considered a nothing movie. He's in a movie called Snitch.
I remember the poster for that, but I don't remember
That's a movie where I think his son goes to jail and he tries to get his son out of jail or something. That is along the lines of look, as you were saying, Jameson, it's hard to do like a trilogy of Dwayne Johnson movies because after a certain point, even if they aren't movies that people have heard of, they just become Dwayne Johnson movies.
Like
whether or not they are. And this is one of those.
Yeah, Zach, when you said like, oh yeah, I remember seeing the poster for it, but I haven't seen the movie. I think you could arguably say that about most of Dwayne Johnson's movies.
Well, he's got this weird thing where he either does like really good commercially successful action movies like your Fast and Furiouses and shit like that, and then he even when he's like a big star, he'll be in like 4 movies a year that are these like seem like they're probably direct to DVD releases because I've never heard of them. I didn't see them in any theaters, and they're always bad and have like kind of a generic title. They're very like generic Bruce Willis action movie type things.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Where it's all like Snitch, Heavy Assault, Hard Hand. And they're all
Hard
so like that could be a fucking Bruce Willis movie. I don't know. And they're just always just the most generic things where it's like this dude is a good guy, but now he's got to get his hands dirty. And
he's just a regular, everyday American Joe who just
jacked
happens to look like a slab of ground beef.
Exactly. It's
right.
very much the Arnie thing too, right?
Yeah.
Like
decorated Marine back to his small hometown, and he's got to
Exactly.
get into a car and like save the town.
So
or his woman or
2000
whatever.
2013, he does Snitch, he does G.I. Joe Retaliation, another franchise that
Right.
he joins after the fact.
Yeah.
Right.
And tries to improve just by virtue of being in it.
Now I've never
Didn't work.
I've never seen any of the G.I. Joe movies, but I think he's probably only in the movie for like 10 minutes, isn't he? Like
No, he is fully.
Oh, is
like,
he?
he's like
Yeah.
fully like the star of that
From
second movie.
okay.
From what I remember is the first movie starred Channing Tatum, right?
Yes.
And then in the sequel, he almost immediately dies, and The Rock is he usurps him as the lead.
So
of
they
that
triple X'd his ass.
movie. They did.
Yeah. Yeah.
Except Channing Tatum actually bothered to show up for that sequel,
Right.
And
they didn't just get a
let
bald
himself
man
get
to like
killed. Yeah.
run and get shot.
Okay. So Snitch, G.I. Joe Retaliation, then Empire State, then Michael Bay's Pain and Gain,
Which I actually like quite a bit as a movie.
which I think low-key is maybe one of his best
I
performances.
was gonna say,
Yeah.
I honestly think it might be his best performance.
It's
like
it's one of the better Michael Bay movies, I think.
it is one of the better Michael Bays, and it's like, I think that's a pretty strong movie, honestly.
And then he caps off 2013 with Fast and Furious 6.
Jesus.
So just a massive year for The
Monster
Rock.
fucking year.
And then right in the middle of that, he lays a tiny little turd that went straight to DVD called Empire State.
Little,
And
What a
little
fucking
indie
turd.
heist movie.
yeah.
Like, it's bad. I also, okay, so, I mean, can we just get into it? This movie is, I guess, based on a true story, but they
Yeah.
don't lead with that at all. Like, I don't recall anything off the top that was like, this is based on a true story. And I'm like, that's weird. Don't you normally say
It does
that?
open with
There's the news
like
footage.
news footage, but it really isn't until the end of the movie.
No, when you see the real guy
Yeah.
or whatever, that you're like, because that actually makes the movie make more sense, because otherwise I'm like, why are we watching this? Why is this a thing? And then you're like, oh, okay, it's based on true events. I kind of get why somebody would try and make this movie, but I was like, if this is just a fiction in someone's head, I'm like, why
Yeah.
did they even write this? It doesn't make any sense.
Well, you're going to want to make a movie about what at the time was the largest money vault heist in
Yeah.
history. There's going to be a story there. Why they decide to... The direction they take in that, I think, is where the main problem comes from. I think there were shades of this movie that I think, like, Scorsese would have made...
Well, it's a crime movie.
It's a crime
Yeah.
movie,
Yeah.
and like there's like some of the staples that you would see in a Scorsese crime movie. There are like these low-level gangsters. There's the use of like classic rock and montage scenes. You know, like there's like the setup as like they're walking through where the heist takes place, where you think they're going to incorporate things that are mentioned into the process of the
yeah,
heist
and
itself.
they just don't.
They don't.
Like, that's the thing, because they kind of do that at one point, right? Like, they kind of start to do the setup of, like, here's the deal. Like, this is, and he starts writing on the paper, and then they, like, he's like, you're gonna break in, you're gonna break this camera, I'm gonna call you guys on the phone. And that's all we ever hear about the heist planning, which in a heist movie is usually one of the most exciting
Yeah.
things, is like seeing the plan and then seeing how the plan goes wrong and how they have to improvise.
Yeah.
But they just sort of like abandon telling us that there's a plan.
Well, midway through that whole heist montage planning sequence, it's interrupted by another plot.
Yeah.
It's
We're getting,
yeah,
we're
sorry.
getting a little off track here.
We
But
are,
what
we
I do
are.
want to add, onto this conversation is that something that might make this movie a little more interesting if they kind of like leaned into it a little bit is the fact that, as you were saying, you know, the most interesting part of a heist movie is to say, okay, this is how we're going to do it. This is how we're going to, and then we see the area where like the heist is going to happen. We see like plot points and props on the wall that are going to like come into
Factor
They're
in.
going to factor in later. The reason why everything sort of falls apart is because this is a heist that is perpetrated entirely by morons.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's kind of the sort of interesting thing about this movie that they don't lean into
Yeah.
enough.
For sure.
And I meant to look this up before we started recording. What is literally the name of the place that they rob?
Empire.
No, sorry. Not that literal. Thank you, boys. Thank you.
That's
But
why
what-
the movie's called Empire.
There we go. We
State.
figured it out, ladies and gentlemen.
There
Thank
we
you very
go.
much. Okay, we're good. Yeah, if you like this episode,
Block it out.
no,
So-
it's like a money holding building? Like
I
what?
guess.
What is the name of that company? What do you call that?
Well, they're
It's like an armored car service, but then they also have like, I guess, their own. Well, it's not really a vault because it's literally just sort of like a mini storage unit door that you slide up, and then there's like
It's like a
shitload of
garage
money
to a
back
rec
there.
room or
I'm,
something.
I'm
Yeah.
sure the real life robbery had a vault. this movie could not get a
They
hold.
couldn't afford a vault. Yeah.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
Because again,
All
they
right.
spent 3/4 of the budget on having Dwayne Johnson show up
All
for
right.
5 days.
We're gonna get into it a little bit more, but let's back up just a little bit. Zach, we like to ask guests on the WrestleMania episodes, what is your background with professional wrestling? Did you watch it? Are you a fan of it? Do you have opinions on it?
Do you know what? I don't really have a ton of opinion on it, if I'm being honest. I've watched it a little when I was a kid, was never really super into it. Yeah, honestly, I don't have a huge background with it. I really find it fascinating to look at the actors who have transitioned from wrestling and like how they've done. I think that's really interesting. Like you said, there's sort of some guys in the past few years. Well, Dwayne Johnson was obviously kind of first, but Batista and Cena, who it's like they're really doing it now. Like they're like full blown kind of movie stars, and for the most part, they're pretty good.
I'll come back to this again when we do the other 2 episodes. The way I like to kind of frame it is, of the 3 of them, Johnson is the movie star.
Yeah.
Cena, interestingly enough, is the comedian.
I know, yeah.
And
he really is.
Batista might be the best actor.
of
I mean,
the
he
3.
might be like the best overall actor who has ever come out of pro wrestling.
Who would have thought that like Dave Bautista would be Denis Villeneuve's guy?
Yeah, exactly. That he's just going to
Who
start.
would have thought that?
I mean, like Dwayne Johnson has starred in all of these movies, but not one of them has been nominated for Best Picture.
No, absolutely
So,
not.
And they're never gonna be.
At this rate, no,
Yeah.
probably
and
not.
in Blade Runner and in Dune, like I'm like Batista is good, and he's also very good as Drax. Like he is honestly, I don't think he's right for everything, but when he's cast,
No, and
in
we'll
the right
get there
thing,
with the episode we're going to do, but yeah.
There's definitely some shit he's not right for, but when he's in the right spot, he's really good.
Yeah.
Like he does his thing well, and for directors who know how to use him, it produces a good product.
Yeah.
I will say, I would love to see The Rock really do some acting. Pain and Gain is the closest he got, but I want to see him do some fucking movie like The Wrestler or something. You know what I mean? Like, I wonder, I'm like, can you actually act? You know? Like, he's very good at doing his little charming thing, but I'm like, I don't know if you can actually act. And you have at least at one point been the highest grossing movie star on the planet.
Oh, easily. Yeah.
And like, I don't know if you can act.
Well, I was gonna say that, kind of dovetailing to what you were saying before about how Rock's the action hero, Cena's the comedian, Batista's the actor. All 3 of those qualities, those are the qualifiers, could be applied to just wrestlers in general, I think, to a certain degree. Like, some will lean more into the others. I think professional wrestlers are very good at what they do. They are these committed stunt performers that when they lean into like their gimmicks or their persona, they go full bore of it and they stick to that persona, that storyline for themselves, and sacrificing their bodies to do it. And I think they are some of the hardest working people in show business.
Oh yeah. Learning about, also I will say that learning about professional wrestling is like a little heartbreaking in a way, because these guys get fucked. Like that industry is just exploitative, like extremely exploitative, and it's like they injure themselves. It's like, well, go fuck yourself, pal. Like you're on your own. Like they don't have any insurance or there's no like anything for those guys.
And they do that for the audience.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they are really committed performers. But like to what you're saying, like you want to see like if The Rock act in something, he needs to do a little bit more range. He can play a bad guy. He can play a hero. It's very rare that he does comedy. And yet he's hosted SNL like 5 times, and he's not half bad at it.
I think he's pretty good at comedy. Again, in the right spot, right? Like I think, for instance, you put him in something like The Rundown with Sean William Scott, where he's, I guess, kind of the straight man to Sean William Scott's goofball, and I think it really works. And I actually think that's a great movie. Like I love that movie.
He needs to do more ensemble stuff where he's not like the main central guy.
Yeah.
As a chance to like show that maybe he has some range.
I think a good example of what you're literally talking about, Jameson, is the Jumanji movies. He's not the star of those movies. He's part of an ensemble, and those movies allow him to play characters. They allow him to play other people inside the body of The Rock, and those movies are very funny, and he's very good in them.
Yeah.
To go off of what you were saying earlier, Zach, I don't see it in the future for The Rock. I don't think The Rock is interested in acting, in giving a performance, because he is so in the movie star lane currently right now, and is kind of a little disappointing in terms of his movie star qualities right now, because he's gotten a little complacent.
Yeah,
and he makes the same movies with the same directors. He has, his movie star persona is now that he has found kind of on the same level of Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
He's found the people he can work with, and the people who will say yes to him.
Yeah, exactly.
And those are the only movies he's interested in making.
And he just wants to do that and do his big franchise things, basically. And like, you know, he wants to have 2 or 3 giant franchises going, and like you said, work with these guys we'll just let him do whatever the fuck he wants to do.
Yeah, he's cultivated this image and this persona, and he is like sticking with
Yeah.
it, like through and through. I think it's kind of interesting that he does find like these passion projects. Like I know the Brett Ratner Hercules one was one that he really like was kind of gunning for the longest time. I know he's wanted to do Black Adam since like 2003
Yeah,
or something. And
Which we're getting this year.
I believe we're getting that, yeah.
Yeah. That's the only DC movie that managed to survive getting cut from this year and not getting booted to 2013.
Yeah.
Was Black Adam. The one we
largely-
all wanted to see.
Yeah, who I'm like, who the fuck is Black Adam?
Yeah.
He's like
He's
a
a
Shazam guy, right?
he's a Shazam villain, yeah.
Right. And it's like, he's
So
getting his own
finally, we're getting a
movie?
Black Adam movie.
Is it like with Shazam, or is it a Black Adam
No.
movie?
No, it's a prequel movie.
That's great. That's what we want. is a
Black
prequel to
Adam's
a
kind of
villain
an
that nobody knows.
anti-hero. Like, he's a villain sometimes, other times he
Right.
can be convinced to do the right thing. He was the person who was Shazam before Shazam was Shazam, which of course is getting
okay.
confusing because Shazam is the name of the wizard. I don't know. We
Yeah,
can't get into
yeah,
Shazam
no,
corner
that's-
right now.
Yeah, okay,
We'll be here all
getting-
day.
Getting back to The Rock for a second.
Yeah.
I was going through his IMDb, just looking at all his movies and stuff, and for a guy who is like one of the most marketable stars on the planet, and like I said, a few years ago he was the highest grossing movie star in the world. I don't know if he still is. But like
He might be.
Probably.
he's
I
probably
don't know.
top fucking 5 if he's not still the highest grossing guy. But I'm like,
If it's, not,
actually-
Robert Downey Jr., it's probably The Rock.
Probably, yeah.
Isn't the highest grossing actor currently right now Samuel L. Jackson, just based on the fact that he's in all of these different
I mean,
franchises?
that could be because he's in everything.
Yeah.
But like looking through his filmography, it's like he's actually not made very many good movies. Like you look at it and you're like, everyone knows The Rock. He's still like universally he's this huge star. But then you look at it and you're like, yeah, but what is he actually in? Like he's in the Fast and the Furious franchise, and then that's got Hobbs and Shaw, the spin-off, and then he's
which
done,
is
like,
which is the worst Fast and Furious.
It is the
movie.
worst Fast and Furious. I still didn't think it was bad. I thought it was kind of fun, but it's like it's not great.
I mean, we're just fully into magical realism now at this point. Like we're literally fighting supervillains at this point.
Yeah, it's like a bionic man from the
Yeah.
future. It's like what are we doing here?
I think it's just that he's in like I don't want to use the term like lowest common denominator crowd pleasers, but let's be honest. They're whatever. It's a switch your brain off popcorn flick.
But like even that, you know what I mean? It's like you look at it's like there are good and there are bad, like kind of mindless, like Fast and the Furious, right? Like those movies are very dumb, but they're very cool movies,
And they're very fun.
And they're very fun, and they're very well made and like well shot, and there's a lot of interesting stuff going on there.
But of course, notably, he's no longer in them.
He isn't because him and Vin don't get along.
Right, because Vin Diesel is a weird person.
Yeah.
That I think in maybe like 5 years, once the Fast and Furious movies reach their finale, I will not be surprised when the one news story about just how weird Vin Diesel truly is, because he's done like some weird things here and there. He's had some uncomfortable interviews with women.
Oh,
really?
That's
Have you
not
guys seen-
Ooh,
there's
that's
that clip they play
cringy.
on an episode of How Did This Get Made? Is that what
Yeah,
you're talking about?
yeah.
Like,
Where you
when
can't
did
stop telling the interviewer how beautiful she is.
He's like, when did this become beautiful? World
Famously
or something?
married man, Vin Diesel. Yeah.
And then he also does a lot of like posting videos of himself singing karaoke
Just
in his
dancing,
like basement club room by himself. It's very weird. That dude is like whacked. Also, it's weird that The Rock and him are like very similar in certain ways. Like they both are these like giant ripped bald men, They're both surprisingly asexual in their movies.
Yeah.
It's like you never see Vin fuck anybody. It's just like all women want to fuck Vin in his movies, but he's always got that kind of energy where he's just like, yeah, I don't know, maybe we'll see what happens.
Well, that would require him to take his shirt off and then reveal
That he's
how
actually
not ripped he
anymore.
actually is. Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
He
But
is-
I know, like, every time Dwayne Johnson has to, like, have, like, a romance scene, it feels, like, very weird. Like, there's, like, near the end of Hobbs and Shaw, he kisses Vanessa Kirby, and I'm all like, oh, I guess they're a couple, and it's just all like, I guess?
Yeah.
Like, it kind of feels like...
She's also, like, 20 years younger than
Yeah,
him.
that helps, too, yeah.
But, like, it's fucking weird, because they are both, like, very asexual beings, where it's, like, they're, like, strong and ripped and stuff, but, like, I don't know, do people think that they're, like, sexually attractive?
I can't answer that question.
I don't know.
I think maybe it's that, like, maybe it's an intimidation thing. Like, they're just so ripped
They're these,
that, like,
big
they'll
guys,
just break a woman in half if they embrace her too hard.
Here's one thing I'll say for Empire State. I think this is peak Dwayne Johnson. I feel like he was never sexier than he is in this movie. He
that's
looks
fair.
really good.
That's great.
He's got, like, the perfect amount of muscle mass.
Yeah.
He just didn't stop.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, he kept going.
Yeah.
And now he's like a street shark or something.
He's a
He's
freak of
like
nature,
he's a
right?
Herculoid.
Yeah.
He's like he's too big.
Well-
like I watched him in Jungle Cruise. and like that movie ends with him and Emily Blunt in like an old timey car and everything like that, and he's like, he's like poking out of the sides, and it's just like everyone has to accept you as a person who lives in this universe, Dwayne Johnson, and you're not making it easy for us.
What's really funny is I saw this interview with him where he was talking about it, and he like in his mind he builds like specific bodies for specific movies. Like I saw him talking about this. He's like, yeah, you know, for this movie it's like I'm a little bit leaner and I'm a little bit like this.
Leaner.
And then this movie I get like a little bigger, and I'm like, you look exactly the same. You always just look like this giant man.
Like,
but in his mind, he's like putting in all of this work to like change. He's doing like Jared Leto gaining all that weight for that fucking movie about the guy who killed John Lennon, and it's like you look exactly the same, dude.
Jungle Cruise, like placed in like what, the early 1900s or something?
Yeah,
like
something
nobody looked like that back then. A
Nobody was that
strongman
ripped.
back then had a pretty big midsection.
Well, okay, so spoilers for Jungle Cruise that I know. I know everyone went to see Jungle Cruise, so no one can be spoiled by Jungle Cruise. Jungle Cruise, there's a little bit of magic related to his character. He's older than he appears, so like he's playing someone who has like
we sound so disappointed.
Yeah.
he's playing someone who's been around for a while,
and
so
that
I think
does-
that kind of like explains why he looks the way he does in that
And
movie.
that does make sense, because I know in the 1900s nobody looked like that, but in 1850 pretty much everyone looked like that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But I will say,
What happened to men?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, even weightlifters back in that day didn't look like weightlifters today. They look like average-looking people in like leopard print things, holding like one giant barbell over their head.
The one bar with like the two bowling balls over
Yeah,
the end
yeah,
of it.
yeah, yeah,
Their
that.
handlebar mustaches.
So I think Rock has never looked better than he looks in this movie. However, he still looks too big to play the character he is playing in this movie.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And it's
It's
like,
distracting to see him.
Well, it's the same. It's the Arnold thing all over again,
Yeah.
right? Where like he often plays like in Skyscraper. He's like, I'm like a security specialist guy, and I'm like, no, you're not.
Yeah.
No, you're not. You're not. Nobody looks like that as a security specialist guy. Like, why? Do you
Skyscraper, they have to like engineer ways to kind of give him a disadvantage. They take away his foot,
his leg.
They take away his leg in that movie, but like it still barely slows him down.
Yeah.
And that's the only enjoyable part of Skyscraper is seeing Dwayne Johnson beat someone with his own fake leg.
That is pretty great.
Unfortunately, it doesn't last.
No, that movie is also terrible. That's such a bad movie.
Oh man. What if Die Hard?
Was
It's just Die Hard. That's
What
my
if it was Die Hard,
joke.
but
What
it
if we
was with
remade
Dwayne
Die Hard?
Johnson?
What if we just did it again and it was worse?
Dude.
And it wasn't as fun as Die Hard?
Yeah, exactly. What if we did Die Hard again, just worse in pretty much every conceivable way? Huh? What do you guys say? Would you guys be into that? Yes? No?
I mean,
I
people keep signing up for that shit.
Yeah.
So, well, we've sort of run down the Rock's filmography kind of out of order. Are there any other like Rock performances that we wanted to like highlight here? Like he's been in like once in a while he does take some risks. Like an early risk that he took that didn't pay off for him or anyone for that matter was Southland Tales, which is the first movie he made, which is the first movie where he is credited as Dwayne Johnson,
As opposed to
which
The
is
Rock.
which is that follow up to Donnie Darko that like I couldn't even begin to explain the plot of Southland Tales.
Wait, it's a sequel to Donnie Darko?
No, it's the same.
No, that's S. Darko.
It's the S. Darko. I'm so thrilled, Jameson, to know that you've heard about S. Darko. Anyway, that's a completely different.
What?
That's a completely different subject.
Oh no, what have I opened myself up to?
Southland Tales is a movie. God, it's like a weird post-apocalyptic thing. It's got like a big cast. Sean William Scott, Sarah Michelle Gellar, endless fucking cameos. God, I've opened a Pandora's box here of saying Southland Tales to someone who doesn't know what Southland Tales is. Now I have to explain what Southland Tales
Yeah, I
is.
have no idea.
No, let's just.
Okay.
It's weird. It's a weird movie he made
Okay.
that didn't really pan out for anyone, and it's a weird cult classic, and he's never really made anything like it since,
Yeah.
and he's quite bad in it.
Okay.
But to be fair, everyone is quite bad in it because no one really knows what sort of movie that is.
Right.
It's very bizarre. He's tried playing gay once before. He was in that Get Shorty sequel.
Oh, right.
That
Yeah,
no
Be
one
Cool.
Be Cool.
That was really bad also.
I
That
haven't
was
seen
not
it
good
in a while.
movie.
I have a feeling his performance probably
Is offensive?
doesn't hold up necessarily all that
yeah,
well.
The
but
only thing I remember about that movie is he kicks the shit out of Vince Vaughn, and
I'm here for it.
Oh, I
yeah,
love
that's
to see
cool.
it.
I fucking hate Vince Vaughn, and a lot of that is like kind of just because he's a huge, Chicago Blackhawks fan, and They and the Vancouver Canucks had a bitter rivalry 12 years ago, so yeah, fuck you, Vince Vaughn.
I actually like Vince Vaughn. I don't know why I'm saying that. I think he's pretty alright. I don't mind him. I think he's funny.
Yeah, I got nothing against the guy, except he's a Blackhawks fan.
Yeah, fuck that guy.
There are, without getting into it right now, because I know you hate it when I get political on this show, there are many bad qualities about
the Chicago Blackhawks?
Oh no, is he like not a good dude?
Sure,
Is Vince Vaughn like a shitty guy?
We can talk about it. He's not. I didn't want to spoil.
That
I didn't want to
sucks.
ruin Wedding Crashers for you.
No, do you know what? Wedding Crashers is a pretty problematic movie in its own right in every way.
All right. Well, we're probably at the time now where it's time for us to take a break. So I didn't think of a clever little pee break thing that ties into Dwayne Johnson movies. So
Well, let's just smell what the Rock's cooking.
Oh, Jameson saving me there. All right, great. All right, well, we'll take a break, and when we come back, we'll tell you
What he was cooking.
what the Rock smelled, and what he cooked.
He who smelt it cooked it.
Yeah,
I guess.
Because this is all good stuff. This is all going in.
Wasn't it always like crack?
What?
I think it was crack.
Just because his name is The Rock?
Yeah.
Is that a thing?
I'm not 100%. I'm like 50% sure.
Wait,
I think that was the rumor going around at the time that like
that
what
he
was
was
smelling.
cooking crack?
He
If
was
by a
crack
rumor
rocks.
you mean like a dumb schoolyard thing that people
Yeah,
were saying
exactly.
because they made like the association with cooking.
Hey,
and
it was
rock?
the
Yeah.
Attitude Era. When I
This
was
is
in
one of
high
those
school.
things. It's,
Yeah.
yeah.
Anyways, let's go smell what the Rock's cooking.
Let's go smoke some crack. We'll be right back.
In the early months of the COVID-19 pandemic, communities would cheer the medical professionals every night at 7 p.m. as the hospital day and night shifts would change hands. This symbolic gesture of support for the healthcare workers who risked their lives and safety to help others continued for a handful of months, but would eventually sputter out long before vaccines became available. Now, vaccines have provided some hope. However, the cheering has stopped, and there is no greater tell that we have forgotten the healthcare workers. During the pandemic, heavier workloads and inadequate staffing increased the severity of burnout, anxiety, and mental health problems for healthcare workers, which in turn resulted in poorer quality of care in hospitals and long-term care homes and health centers. This highlights how closely linked medical professionals' health and patients' health really are. In particular, nurses have been on the front line of our COVID-19 response for close to 3 years now, and we urgently need to protect their mental health for their well-being and that of the communities that they serve. So for today's charities, I'd like to highlight the BC Nurses Union, which protects and advances the health, safety, social, and economic well-being of its members, their professions, and their communities. And to the Canadian Nurses Foundation, which among other goals offers funding for nurse-led research that enhances the quality and efficiency of patient care. To donate to either of these charities, please visit the Canadian Nurses Foundation at cnf-fiic.ca/donate and the BC Nurses Union at vancouverfoundation.ca/bcnursesunion. Excuse me.
Smelled that. Is that what he was cooking?
Yes,
He
sure,
was cooking.
certainly was.
Fuck. All right, well, we're back.
I didn't mean to do that, by the way.
Well, we're back.
Yeah.
All right. So Empire State is directed by a gentleman named Dito Montiel.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with this
No,
guy?
there was something about like the way it was placed at the beginning of the movie that I was like, I feel like I'm supposed to think that this guy's a big deal because it was
I
like
think
a
he thinks
Dito
he's a big-
Montiel
Yeah.
production, and it felt very like I don't know, just posed in a way where I felt like this was supposed to be a thing.
I think he thinks he's a big deal.
This movie thinks it's a big deal.
Oh yeah, running through this guy's filmography, I wouldn't be surprised, Jameson, if we do another Dito Montiel picture at some point in
Oh,
time.
can't wait.
You look at the movies that he's made, and he is like the Christopher Nolan of movies that don't fucking exist.
Of like just bad movies that are straight to DVD.
I'm not even gonna go ahead and say bad because I haven't seen. This is the only Dito joint that I've watched.
Right.
But let me run down the career of Dito really quickly, and then we can get into Empire State. So
All
Dito Montiel came into the public eye after the breakup of his hardcore punk band Major Conflict. He would
what major conflict got into the way of...
Ironically, it was a very minor conflict that broke up the band. He would gain notoriety in 1989 with Geffen Records, signed his new band Gutter Boy to a $1 million record deal, which was an unheard of sum at the time. The band was dropped after its debut and was dubbed one of the most successful unsuccessful bands of all time.
Interesting.
This makes a lot of sense in a way, because for one, I'm sure that this guy wrote his own Wikipedia entry. Like, there's no way that this guy didn't write
possibly, but, like, those are better bona fides than, like, a lot of directors have. Most directors go to fucking, like, film school, and they made, like, films on, like, Super 8 or whatever. Dino Montiel had his pulse on the finger of the hardcore punk scene in fucking New York in, like, the 1980s. You know?
I couldn't make it as a musician. Time to not make it as a director.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. He's made it, though, arguably. Like, he makes movies.
He makes movies. He's made more than one. So he arguably is a successful filmmaker in that he gets movies out the door. So 2003, Montiel published his memoir, which is called A Guide to Recognizing Your Saints, which is detailing his time spent touring with Gutter Boy and his brief modeling career with Versace. So this guy had a life before he made his first movie. So in 2006, he adapted his memoir, A Guide to Recognizing Your Saints, into a screenplay, and for the director of this project, he of course chose himself. Someone who had never made a film in his life. He says, like, not only am I going to tell my life story,
the only person who could tell it is me.
The only person who can do this shit is me. Like, fuck all these other people.
Do you know what, though? Like, to a certain degree, I'm like, hey, good for Dino. He hustled. Like, he made it where he wanted to be, you know?
So A Guide to Recognizing Your Saints is the best reviewed movie that he's ever made. It actually looks like it got some decent reviews, like, in terms of, like, an independent feature. Like, it apparently isn't that bad.
Probably put a lot of effort into it.
He is the main character of the movie is named Dino Montiel. As a young man, he is played by a pre-Transformers Shia LaBeouf.
Oh, wow.
And as an older man, he is played by a pre-Iron Man Robert Downey Jr.
Holy shit.
Wow.
So 3 years after that movie comes out, those two guys are, like, the most bankable fucking, like, stars in Hollywood.
Wow, yeah.
Also, other people in this movie include Chaz Palminteri as his dad, Diane Wiest as his mom, Rosario Dawson as his girlfriend, Channing Tatum as his best friend, and Eric Roberts as what else? The older version of Channing Tatum's character.
Jesus Christ.
Which, of course, makes complete and total fucking sense. I know certainly when I was watching Step Up for the first time, the first thought in my mind was, what's this Eric Roberts movie from, like, the 80s? I'm not familiar with that. They just totally, like, the same guy. I don't know if this...
Like fucking shades of Almost Famous.
Exactly.
To a degree, yeah. Also, just look at the marketing of this movie. This movie is about the characters played by Robert Downey Jr. and Shia LaBeouf. Robert Downey isn't even on the poster. Channing Tatum, front and center on this poster. Even in 2006, people knew where the money was.
Was he, like, he wasn't a big deal in 2006?
No, arguably, this is kind of the movie that made him a big deal.
Really?
And he would go on to be Dino Montiel's muse on his next two movies. As you mentioned, Fighting.
Yeah.
A movie called Fighting, which is about fighting. The most imaginatively titled movie of all time. The movie he makes after Fighting, which is the only way I can say it.
Naturally.
The movie he makes after this, Jameson, we have to do this next movie one of these days. When you hear the above the title cast for this next movie, it will be so easy to do based on who's in this. So his next movie is another cop drama. It's called The Son of No One. And the above the title cast is, once again, Channing Tatum. Second build, Tracy Morgan.
What?
In what I believe is his only dramatic role.
Wow, okay.
Then Katie Holmes, Ray Liotta, with Juliette Binoche, and Al Pacino.
Jesus Christ.
So what is this? This movie is completely anonymous. I've never heard anyone talk about that. But based on that above the title fucking credits, there's got to be something to this.
What's the thing? I'm like, this guy actually gets really good people in his movies.
He continues to get every one of his movies has had an A-lister of some sort.
That's
from the very beginning to the other one.
Although it does seem like he's getting diminished returns as time goes on, because, I mean, once you get to Empire State, it's like, we got The Rock, and then you got I don't know, like fucking Liam Hemsworth, I guess, and Emma Roberts.
Well,
like,
we'll see. We'll see.
You're not,
Also,
you
by
know.
the way, thank you for coming back and being on the show after I promised you a Dwayne Johnson movie and
That was
surprised
like-
you with a stealth Liam Hemsworth
Yeah,
picture.
Believe me, I was a little choked
Which was
about that. I'm not gonna...
to my credit, a very mean thing for me to do.
I wrote at one point in my notes, "Oh, thank God The Rock is here." Like, I just felt so good because he doesn't go on screen till like 35 minutes into the movie, probably, and I just felt so like, oh, we're in good hands. I can stop. I don't know why. There's something about we can get into the whole movie later, but there's something about watching Liam Hemsworth act that feels like I'm the one doing the work. Like, oh, The Rock comes on screen.
Well,
like,
one of us
oh,
is.
I can relax a little. Like he's gonna do
Right,
the
yes,
heavy lifting.
the thespian prowess of
Yeah.
Dwayne Johnson will
That's the-
save this
And
movie.
that's the sad thing when you're like, oh, he's the guy who's like taking care of us here, you know?
Okay, let's quickly finish up Dito Montiel.
Yes,
So then after this he makes Empire State. Then the next movie he makes after this sounds genuinely kind of interesting. It ended up being one of the last movies Robin Williams ever made. It's a film called Boulevard, and it is a story about a closeted gay man who's in a marriage of convenience, and then one night he almost runs into a young street hustler, picks him up and takes him back to a hotel, and they don't have sex, but they just kind of talk. And he kind of figures out some shit about his life, and he realizes he probably needs to come out of the closet. Bob Odenkirk is in this. He plays Robin Williams' brother. This sounds good. I feel like I actually might just watch this.
That actually sounds interesting.
Yeah, this at the very least, it won't be one of like the best dramas of the year, but just by the virtue of this is one of the final Robin Williams performances that I haven't seen. It's got me interested. It's definitely piqued my interest.
And you're like, oh, that's like great. Robin Williams coming out of the closet, like, you know, he's gonna give a good performance.
Yeah, I love Robin Williams
Love me some
in
Robin
his dramatic lane. You know, there's some good stuff.
It's really cool seeing these A-listers want to do smaller indie dramas like this. Did you see what any of the critical reviews on these movies are like? Like, is there a reason why, like, Dito Montiel, whatever his name is,
Keeps getting good people in his movies.
but his career doesn't seem to be on, like, this upwards trajectory? Like, he's not nominated for, like, Best Picture or Best Director.
But much like Dwayne Johnson probably will never give a truly good acting performance, I am fairly confident in saying Dito Montiel will never be nominated for an Academy Award. But hey, I've been wrong about that before.
You never know. He could make some like really amazing indie that.
Speaking of poorly reviewed films, his next film, maybe one of his more notorious films, he's back with Shia LaBeouf in a film called Man Down, which is this post-apocalyptic army type.
Gary Oldman.
Gary Oldman, yeah.
I saw that. Yeah.
This movie is notorious for selling just one ticket in its opening day in the UK.
Whoa!
Now it should be
One
said,
ticket?
it only played in one theater.
Right, but still,
But
only
still,
one person went to
it's one of like those like weird like optics about like a specific movie that just kind of like follows it and it becomes the thing you know about it. This movie, in addition to selling no tickets, also just got ravaged by the critics. Apparently, it's absolutely terrible. It's Shia LaBeouf in his methodiest, bullshittiest fucking way.
Right.
Like when and also too, it seems like this was right in that time when he had his head so firmly so far up his own ass that like it was impossible to pull it out. I think he's still kind of there in all fairness, but Shia, I mean still kind of like
Shia's last couple of roles were great. Like he did that movie Honey Boy that was based on his childhood.
Yeah.
That was really great. Unfortunately, the year after that came out, the FKA Twigs came out and said that he's like an abusive piece of shit. So I've mostly written Shia LaBeouf off now. I would be perfectly happy if he never made another movie again. We don't need more Shia. He's given good performances, but if he's a piece of shit, he can go away. And the final movie that Dito Montiel has directed to this date is probably his most unfortunately titled movie, The Clapper, which is, I'm sorry, if you're calling your movie The Clapper, it's time to go back to the fucking drawing board. It's called The Clapper because it is a movie about Ed Helms, who plays a guy who is in the audience of infomercials. And he's in so many infomercials, he is known as The Clapper because he's always the guy you cut to who claps. And that's the plot of this fucking movie, and that's the last thing I want to say about it. He hasn't made a movie since then.
Yeah, and that was like 2017, so he's like maybe firmly not getting chances anymore.
He has one more screenwriting credit on a movie I have seen called Critical Thinking, which is a movie that John Leguizamo directed and starred in, where he plays an inspirational teacher who inspires a bunch of students to join the chess team. and just describing that plot of that movie, you've now seen the movie.
Right.
Because that is exactly the type of movie that, if you want to see a movie where John Leguizamo plays an inspirational teacher who teaches youth how to play chess, that's it. You've seen the movie now. You don't need to see it now.
Johnny Legs, what are you doing, man? Like, God, we love
I'm here
you
for
in,
it, though.
in Moulin Rouge. Like, he's so good. Don't do this, Johnny Legs.
I was more than happy to see Johnny Legs
Was it good?
teach a bunch of. It was fine.
Okay.
It was the movie. It's all like, oh, this could be fun, and then I watched it. And I'm all like, yep, that's what that was.
That was that.
That's
You
what that
sounded-
was.
You sounded
Yeah.
so offended when you said fine. It
was
fine.
It was good. It was a totally inspirational.
It was
fucking
totally
thing.
a movie.
It was a movie that you could wheel out the TV in history class
Right,
and like
play
put that
that
on.
on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. The only thing I remember about it that's worth remembering is that John Leguizamo plays a character named Mario, which I thought was funny.
Now he's played both.
Now he's played both of
He's
them.
done both
He's done
the
both
roles.
of the brothers. All right. Well, that's my Dito Montiel corner.
Also, sorry, this is just a quick... How are we not bringing Johnny Legs back for the new Super Mario Brothers? How is he not Luigi again? I would love to see him
or
reprise the
just
role.
just any
Or anybody.
any role. He's got a history in voice acting.
Give him the heavy role as the King Koopa in the who played that Dennis Hopper. Give him the Dennis Hopper spot. You know.
Have him or just have him play like a lesser Mario character. Have him be a Goomba. Johnny Leguizamo would be a perfect Goomba.
Or I would love to see him as like a strung out Yoshi. Like, Yoshi's been like on the drugs and because he plays like really rough around the edges characters a lot. Like I'd love to see it like Yoshi's trying to get clean. And
somehow I don't think
the
the Illumination people are going to be bringing this into their
they
movie.
should. It would be great.
Oh boy, I'm not looking forward to that movie.
No, I am kind of looking
I
forward
love
to it,
Super
'cause
Mario.
It's gonna be so dumb and so
I love
bad.
Super Mario so much. It's like one of my favorite franchises, and I couldn't be less excited about this fucking movie that's coming out.
Do you know what? I've been saying this a lot recently that like Hollywood is getting really good at answering the questions that nobody ever fucking asked. Like, what is Mario doing when he's not in a video game? Just like, oh, we need to learn more about Boba Fett and where he came from and where he went.
That question but that question has already been answered. What does Mario do when he's not in a video game? He's playing tennis.
Yeah, it's true.
Playing golf.
Yeah.
He's racing karts.
He's
competing in the Olympics.
He's a busy guy.
He's a busy guy.
He's a
He's
busy
playing
fucking guy.
every sport.
Yeah, there you go. So
And in his spare time, he's practicing medicine.
That's right.
He's busy. He's a busy guy.
He is also a doctor.
So Empire State, which is the movie we're talking about
that is
today.
the sort of.
Jameson-
Time to talk about a not fun movie that I took all these notes for.
I also took a lot of notes.
Wasted an entire evening watching this movie.
Yeah.
I'm glad we finally get to talk about it.
So I watched like half of it yesterday, and then I went out. I was celebrating with friends for my birthday, and I was very
Celebrating
hungover.
watching Empire State.
Celebrating watching Empire State.
Zach, was your birthday yesterday?
No, it was a week ago, but we were really
I
busy, so
see.
it was my birthday.
Happy
so we
belated,
went out.
by the way.
Happy belated.
Thank you. It was. So we went out, and this morning I woke up and was like so hungover and had to drag my ass out of bed and put
To
this
watch
movie
the
on.
second half of
Yeah,
Empire State?
And not just
Oh
to
my
add
God.
insult to injury, I was like, okay, the movie's like an hour and a half. I had to have watched 50 minutes at least yesterday, so like I'm pretty much through it. And I put it on, and I was
15
like,
minutes?
No, 50.
Oh, 50, okay.
50. I was like,
Yeah.
I'm like halfway through, and I put the movie on, and I was only 25 minutes in.
Oh, you
and I
poor
was like,
bastard.
no, how is this
So
even
worse.
possible?
Oh, you poor
Yeah.
bastard.
Like this has been the longest 25 minutes of watching.
And the second half of the movie is arguably the exciting half of the movie.
Yeah.
At least you didn't have to like sit through that bullshit delivering a statue improv sequence again.
Oh my
Well,
god.
There wasn't a
Yeah.
single line written in that.
No.
It's just all like,
Hey, what do you want me to put the damn statue? I just put it over there, ma. Hey, can you give your mother a kiss? Ah, no, I gotta put the statue down there. Hey, you want me to move this little pedestal first?
I mean-
no, don't worry about it. Hey, what's the matter you?
You want it on this thing? It's for me.
Please be careful with those plants.
You want me to do with this? What do you want? You want it somewhere,
like that? That's good.
There we go. Yeah, how about that?
You like that?
Ma!
It's good. I like it.
What do you want me to do with the turtle?
Beautiful.
What do you want me to do with the turtle?
Would you like me to tell you what to do with the turtle? Put it
You
down
like it?
and don't break it.
Put that over there.
Thank you, Chris. It's very nice.
You like that, Ma?
Right.
Hey, you want to remove it, I'll move it again, okay? You don't like it, we'll take it back.
Wait.
You don't have to do it, you know?
All right.
I think the first thing to point out is exactly that it's like Michael Gargarano or whatever the fuck his
Michael
name is.
Angarano,
Angarano,
who
that's
is the second lead character
Yeah.
of this movie. You wouldn't know that based on the
poster
DVD
or-
box art of this movie. He's nowhere to be found.
No, but I actually like him in this movie. He's kind of fun, I think, and I think honestly he's probably giving one of the better performances in the movie. But it's just like he is like
Urkel.
he is like an Italian fresh off the boat
Well,
in like 1930s
here-
Brooklyn, and
here's-
then Liam Hemsworth is just like a dude.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, nobody's existing in the same world in this movie, it feels like. Because some people are so heavily like, hey, and then other people are like...
Before we get
"What's
any
up?"
further, here's a point that I have to point out that, full admission time, and you'll hate me even more when I point this out, I have seen this movie before. I saw it when it came out in 2013 because I was like fully into The Rock at that point, and Blockbuster was still a thing at the time, and I remember this came out, I'm all like, a Rock movie that I've never heard of before? And I watched it in 2013, and during the time between now and then, I had forgotten everything about this movie. Like,
I mean, what's to remember?
What is to remember, truly?
Yeah.
I had remembered things that turned out didn't happen in the movie, but like the main thing that I want to sort of like get on the table right now and clear the air is you say that this movie kind of feels like a lower rent Scorsese, and the thing that I had misremembered is that the characters in this movie are Italian. They are not.
They're Greek.
They're Greek.
They are Greek.
I know,
yeah.
and it's so easy to when we're talking about this movie to be all like, "Hey, bada how you doing? Get some gabagool." And it's like that's not it. That's not the
But they all
nationality.
sound like except for so there are three people who are just like normal people. Liam Hemsworth.
Okay, all right.
No, I'm just saying Liam Hemsworth is like.
Wow, I apologize to all our Greek listeners. I'm sorry.
No, not these fucking weird Greeks. I love all Greek people.
I love all Greek. Yeah,
all Greeks.
It's all right.
are great. I'm just saying that like Liam Hemsworth is like kind of sometimes affecting a bit of an accent and sometimes not. Like he's really in and out, right? Like he's kind of like, and he's just kind of mumbling a lot, but every now and then he puts a little emphasis and tries to do a bit of an accent.
Yeah.
And then Emma Roberts is just like a person. She's just like, hey, what's up?
Like girl next door from the Bronx.
Yeah, but she's not even really doing any kind of accent. Like she's just like, hey, how's it going? Yeah, I'm Emma Roberts. I don't even know why I'm in this movie.
I don't even know why I'm in this movie,
don't
and
even know why I'm in this
I
movie.
inexplicably will be second billed.
And I literally
and on
say,
the
like,
poster, and
four things.
I'm
Yeah.
barely a character.
Like,
I'm in this movie less than Dwayne Johnson.
I
is.
was like, why is she in this movie?
Truly a great question that I have no answer
Because I'm just
for.
like, she literally says three things. Like, I get it. They're setting her up as sort of like the romantic interest, or kind of, right? She's the girl next door. Oh, we grew up together.
Barely.
romantic interest.
Like, she's not even really a romantic interest.
But like, it seems like that's what they're setting her up to be, and then there's absolutely no payoff
She
on
does-
that whatsoever.
She does
Like-
nothing in the movie. Like,
No.
Liam Hemsworth doesn't go to her for counsel or for help or anything.
But you know what's
she
really-
doesn't go out of her way to help anyone
she
else.
truly serves no purpose.
But you know
at
what's
all.
so
Yeah.
funny? I'm jumping to the end, but like I thought this was fucking hilarious. How she's not really in the movie. Like literally, she seems to be someone that Liam Hemsworth like kind of knows. They're like, oh hey, what's
They're
up?
like
When they see
childhood
each other
friends.
at the diner,
Yeah.
and that's about it. And then at the very end, Liam Hemsworth shows at home. There's cops at home and stuff, and she sees him, and she's like, you need to tell me what's going on right now. And I'm like, why? You're
Why?
just a person.
Who are you?
Like,
Yeah.
why the fuck does he need to tell you? He doesn't got to tell you shit.
We haven't seen you for the past 35 minutes.
Yeah.
Like, why does he?
But
why,
you know what I mean? It's like that's something that like your girlfriend or your wife says. Like someone that you
Yeah.
have some sort of relationship with would feel like they have the right to be like, you have to tell me what's going on because somebody's looking for you. This is just some woman that lives down
Yeah.
the street from him.
She's
He's
just
like,
a nosy
fuck
neighbor.
you. I don't have to tell you
No,
shit.
it
man.
truly
Like,
feels like there was a romantic subplot that was completely removed from the movie,
Well,
because otherwise, what is the purpose of this character?
we talked about this before, but it
Yeah.
feels like they ran out of funding when they had only shot 3/4 of the
Yeah.
script, and they
Yeah.
were like, fuck, we have enough to film like 2 more scenes.
Yeah.
Can we wrap this up in 2 scenes?
But to go back to the beginning, yes, we have Michael Angarano, who is doing all of the acting. Like, near the end of the movie, I had to remind myself, I don't hate this performance, because he's actually giving a terrific performance
Yeah.
as the most annoying person you've
Yeah,
ever
the
met.
character-
I'm just gonna say it. I think he's the best actor in the movie.
Easily.
Like,
hands
yeah,
down. Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's just that his character makes dumb decisions.
And always makes the worst decision.
Yeah, he's a loudmouth that like just blabs the plan to everybody, and like no, you need to shut the fuck up right now.
Yeah.
He'll enter a room and like he'll just clear it out because no other character can stand this guy.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny to see that
Yeah.
all break down.
And
that
then
way.
next to him, Liam Hemsworth, not my favorite actor in any project that he's in, but in this one, when he is the main character and he has to share the bulk of his scenes with Michael Angarano, who is
Yeah.
acting circles around him,
Yeah.
it just highlights what a wooden,
It is like
nothing
Michael
performance he
Angarano
gives.
is doing all of the acting, and Liam Hemsworth is doing none of the acting.
Liam
Michael Angarano took it all up.
And Liam Hemsworth just stands out like a sore thumb in this movie because, like, He's so tall. He's
Yeah.
like he dwarfs pretty much everyone except for The Rock.
Yeah.
Who also like sticks out like a sore thumb in this movie.
Well, because they're the two of the three people that are just like acting like normal people. Well, I mean, Liam Hemsworth not acting like a normal person because he lacks the ability to do so. But I just mean like isn't really playing up this sort of like time and place period piece of it. It's just sort of like, hey, I'm a guy, I'm here. What's going on?
Sure.
Yeah.
You know, like it's weird. He's like not in the same world as most of the other people in the movie.
We should probably try and talk about the plot.
Yes.
Okay.
I would love that. Okay. So Liam Hemsworth plays Chris, down on his luck Greek gentleman living in New York City in the 1980s.
Can I just say
While we take a break from talking about the plot.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to mention the thing that gave me maybe the most amount of pleasure in this movie is the fact that Liam Hemsworth has to play a character named Chris, and everyone refers to him as Chris, and the entire time he's constantly being reminded of his much more successful and talented brother.
His brother, who is actually a pretty good actor. Like I
Oh,
like
yeah.
Chris Hemsworth.
Absolutely, yes.
Everybody loves. I think the world made that decision that we all much prefer Chris Hemsworth to Liam. Anyways, back to the plot.
Yeah.
If we spend enough time away from it for now. So, his dad is this janitor. He's a former cop who now works for Spiro, who is this low-level gangster.
Played by Chris Diamatopoulos, who, among other things, is also the current voice of Mickey Mouse.
And
Yeah, I
is
know.
also probably the only legitimately Greek person in this film.
Yeah, easily, yes.
I love that guy. I think he's hilarious, and I was so stoked to see him in this movie.
Yeah.
Like, it's a dumb role, and like, arguably he shouldn't even exist in the movie, but I was still so stoked to see him.
I'm sorry. We're gonna whatever. This is our podcast. This is what we do.
All right, join us for part 2 of Empire State.
I just wanted to mention this. This is a neat little piece of trivia. So Chris's dad is played by an actor named Paul Ben Victor. We've seen him before, Jameson. He played one of the wacky cops in Drowning Mona.
I recognized him.
Yeah, him and Chris Diamatopoulos have the interesting trivia thing in that they have both played Mo Howard of the Three Stooges.
Oh, really?
Yes, Paul Ben Victor played him in a TV movie, and Chris Diamatopoulos played him in the Farrelly Brothers movie.
Okay, yeah.
So it's a meeting of the Moes.
There you go. A meeting of
Continue.
Moes.
That's interesting, though.
I think
That's
that's
interesting.
I think
It
it's an
is.
interesting
You
piece of trivia.
don't have to close your book because you waste all this time reopening your book.
Yeah.
So keep the book.
I
open.
get it. It's an emphasis play, and it reads well, but
I mean, it only reads to us because this is an audio medium, and
just so you all you listeners at home, Jameson, he did it again. He just closed his book once more. That is thrice now that he's closed his book. All right, carry on with the plot. See, now you gotta open it. It's full under.
Oh, I lost my page.
oh my god.
So, his dad's treated like a piece of shit at Spiro's bar, and Liam Hemsworth wants to join the police force so he can get like all the pension upgrades or whatever, all the insurance, so he can take care of his family. But he is denied enrollment into the police because he went to a Black Sabbath concert and he smoked a joint.
He got
and
caught with a marijuana cigarette.
And he can't join the police force, so he looks in the want ads. He finds that there's a security guard position at an armored truck delivery thing, and he finds out that the security guard company or the money bank, whatever the fuck they are,
Like an armored car company.
armored car company, they're actually really poorly run. The people who oversee everything, they're like skimming off the top. They're a bunch of crooks.
They're mob connected.
Yeah, so like no one ever counts the money at the end of the day. It has like a really shoddy security system, has like a 1, 2, 3, 4 passcode system. They have a guard dog, but the guard dog's deaf. The security guard there who works the night shift, he's always asleep. So yeah, this place is just begging to be robbed, and I'm surprised it's never been robbed before. Do we want to elaborate on any of this?
Please, yes. Speaking about you were mentioning earlier, like the setup of a heist, and like they show all the elements of the heist, and then like the elements like never come together or anything like that. Biggest red herring of this movie is that fucking death guard dog.
Yeah.
Like they introduce this thing, and you think it's going to be like something's going to happen with it.
Yeah.
And then the only thing that ends up happening with it is that Eddie, Michael Angarano, when he's robbing the place, shoots the dog, but they don't even stick to that.
Yeah,
They,
I felt so heartbroken when that fucking dog
I did as
died.
well. I was like, oh, I liked you, Michael Angarano. Now you killed the fucking dog? Come
Yeah.
on,
and I
man.
mean, that smells like a last minute rewrite. That like whatever producers of this were all like, you
We can't kill the dog.
Can't kill the dog.
That's
so
exactly
they
what that
wrote
reads
in a
like.
line of dialogue that the dog
Oh, the
actually
dog just passed
the dog fainted.
Yeah.
But the dog's dead, so it couldn't hear the gunshot.
Yeah, it doesn't
so,
make any sense.
yeah.
Like, it doesn't make any sense. But you're right that was like some producer was like, people aren't gonna like it if we kill the dog. Like,
we're losing the audience. We gotta revive
it's
this fucking dog.
We can kill this fat guy who works at the armored car company. No problem. Nobody gives a shit about Tony.
Man.
But we can't kill the dog.
I love Chris's first shift with Tony. Michael Rispoli, his Italian co-worker and everything. He just gets into the car and it's just all like, "Hey, nice to meet you. I'm Tony. This is my wife. These are my daughters.
I'm so looking forward to retirement.
I love life so much. This is the address of the cemetery where I want to be laid to rest eventually.
Dead man walking.
Oh boy, I just love life. I love breathing."
And I mean, later you meet the wife when he goes to give her the money, and like she's like conservatively 30 years younger than him and just like beautiful.
Hey,
Yeah.
good,
You know
good
what I
on
mean?
Tony.
I'm like, how you clearly don't make a lot of, like, you're not like a rich guy. It's not like, oh, he got this beautiful woman who's way younger because he's rich, because he works at an armored car company. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess there's not a lot of options for incredibly beautiful women in New York in the 1980s.
I felt like that thing was because so yeah, Tony gets ventilated by some guys who have robbed the armored car and everything, and then Chris,
totally unconnected to the other characters we know in this movie,
Yeah.
which I kind of like. You know, we never figure out who these other guys are. They're just like generic robbers that will periodically like come into.
That's the weird thing about this movie is that it is about a heist from like our main characters are like criminals who are going to steal this movie, but then there are
Coincidentally.
two unrelated other robberies
Yeah.
that also happened before
Now-
that we think is all like, okay, do we know these guys? No, they're just random crooks that just also show up and try to steal the money.
I thought now, because, you know, this is way later in the movie, but Mike kills a fucking turtle from Entourage.
We need to
because-
establish these characters.
You're
before
right,
we
you're right,
talk
you're right,
about
you're right,
shit.
you're right.
All right,
We'll get
yeah,
to this,
we're
we'll
all
get to
over
this,
the
we'll
place
get to
here.
this.
Yeah.
We are all
Damn,
over the
guys.
place. You're right. My bad.
This is our first podcast. We've never done this. Tony gets shot. The second day on the job, and these crooks blow up their van,
Yeah.
and they fill Tony full of bullets. I think Chris gets like one.
He gets
gun,
hit once,
He
yeah.
gets hit once, and this is where we meet Dwayne Johnson.
The massive one, according to his vanity plate. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a detective, goes to Liam Hemsworth and says, "Do you know anything about, like, are you involved in," well, no, he questions him, because he's suspicious of, like, how did you turn out okay from all this?
Yeah, he's instantly suspicious of
He
Liam
is.
Hemsworth. He's suspicious of Liam Hemsworth every time Liam Hemsworth gets robbed. He like it happens twice. And Dwayne Johnson is suspicious of Liam Hemsworth, and like the third time it happens, Liam Hemsworth, I guess, is just like, fine, fuck it, if you're gonna keep assuming that I robbed the place, I guess I'll
I may as
rob
well
the
just
place.
do it, yeah,
Double
before he
jeopardy,
decides.
you know? Yeah.
One thing I remember about that robbery sequence, the crooks leave the money. They shoot Tony, they wound Liam Hemsworth, and then they say, "Fuck the money," and they leave it all there.
Well, because it's FUBAR at this point, right? Like, I don't think they planned on murdering anyone, so they had to get out of there.
Yes, you got to get out of there, but the money's like right there in a bag. Just take the money now.
Anybody could have just run up there and grabbed the sack.
That's the thing, right? At that point, it's like, well, now we killed a dude. Like, we're
Yeah.
in pretty deep. Like, let's at least get the money out of
But,
this deal.
but The Rock interrogates Liam Hemsworth, and like, the money is still there. You know, a man died. You survived a gunshot wound. Why exactly is he suspicious?
yeah,
of
because
Liam Hemsworth?
it doesn't really make a lot of sense.
Because he's a suspicious boy. And
Yeah.
he doesn't trust anybody.
Because The Rock is like, he's just that kind of cop. He knows what's up. He's like, I can sense it. You're gonna steal if you haven't already.
Yeah.
know?
So now Liam Hemsworth is like relegated to the night shift of working the money vault, which I'm just going to call the money vault.
Because his boss gives him shit for not
shooting the people.
murdering someone
Yeah.
because they gave
Yeah.
him a gun and then
Yeah.
he didn't do anything.
Yeah, which is hilarious that they're like, you dumb asshole, you didn't
Yeah.
kill those guys.
Yeah.
Like, you're being demoted.
Yeah.
And as Chris is wandering around doing his late shift and stuff, he just so happens to find a letter to Tony's widow saying that like, you're only gonna get like
10%
a portion of the benefits promised to you and everything like that, which is just a letter lying out on a
Like,
desk
why
for
is
anyone
that
to
just
see.
there?
Yeah.
So people who run the money bank, like, they're corrupt as fuck. They're awful people. The people who deliver the money, like, at the last shift, they just leave it in the trucks overnight. So he's just like, fuck it, I may as well rob this fucking place. So instead of keeping the circle small on this,
Yeah.
he goes to the biggest fucking blabbermouth, who is Eddie, his best friend,
Yeah.
who almost immediately tells these other guys, Jerry and Mike.
Yeah.
Jerry, who is
Turtle from Entourage.
And
Which I wrote in my notes, oh, good, Turtle's here. Yeah, that's a good sign for this movie.
and they are like they are like low-level enforcers to a gang of Colombians who are in
Yes.
town. Yeah. So I don't even know.
No,
why.
they
don't work.
They work for Spiro. Yeah.
They work for Spiro, but they're also moonlighting with these other
No,
guys.
I
They're
think they're just,
doing
like,
like a
doing
deal with the
the
Colombians for
Colombians.
like
Sure,
cocaine.
okay, yeah, maybe that's what I'm. Yeah, fuck. Maybe we don't need to go over the plot because I didn't take as many notes as I thought I did.
No, yeah, they're like they're working on a deal with the Colombians, but they work for Spiro.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, they're his guys.
Yeah. So
And then there's Turtle, and then there's Mike, who's played by an actor I don't recognize, and Mike is like kind of like the psychopath of
Yeah, Crazy Eyes Mike.
Crazy Eyes Mike. Yeah, indeed.
there's little
Yeah,
Crazy Eyes
that's
Mike.
not the movie doesn't give him that nickname. We gave him that nickname right now.
Because he's trying so hard to be that unhinged guy in the heist movie.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
There's always
Yeah.
that guy who's like the loose cannon, and he's trying so hard, and he's like almost getting there occasionally. Like, I almost believe him for a second, but really don't for the most part.
yeah, I mean, it's interesting that that Turtle from Entourage says like we should probably loop in Spyro on this, Spiro on this.
Spiro.
Why did I like?
We should
like,
loop in Spyro.
Spyro
Like,
the
no,
Dragon.
he's
Spyro the Dragon.
he's
Why
busy
did I
right now
see that in my-
collecting those gems and eating
Yeah,
those
doing
dragonflies.
his thing.
That is so weird. I saw that name like spelled out in my head, and I just said Spyro for fuck's sake.
Spiro the Dragon is a very different video game.
Yeah.
It's, you collect
So he tries-
Dolmaddies and
So Jimmy says we should tell Spiro about this. He's like, no, you fucking crazy. Like, no, like this needs to be us. He's like, Spiro's. He fucked over my dad. He fired my dad. Like, no, I don't want to loop him in this. And, okay, well, if he's not going to be involved, I want out. Okay, if that's the way you feel, you're free to go.
Turtle reverse
No,
Which
back.
I'm like, what are you talking about?
He's
you
immediately
idiots?
gonna
Like,
go to this guy.
Well, and that's what I was gonna say is I think what we're supposed to ascertain is that those two other guys were Spiro's guys, because but Mike kills later. I mean, a little later on because they're gonna do the robbery, and at first the robbery is like they kind of have a half-assed planning sequence that gets interrupted in the middle, and then the Rock just runs in the room, which is like, why is the Rock there? It doesn't really make sense. But they're like, we had a tip that this place is gonna be robbed tonight, and that was the night he was gonna rob the place, and then these other two guys show up,
and we as audience members are led to believe, oh, someone tipped the Rock off about them trying to rob the money vault thing, but indeed it was a completely unrelated other crew who was
Which I like. I like the heist that we're following is interrupted
Sure.
by
another
another
heist.
heist.
But I think,
and this is based on a real story, so who knows, maybe that actually happened. Like, who's
Perhaps.
to say?
But I think we're supposed to believe that those are Spiro's guys, because after that, Mike goes and kills Turtle from Entourage.
Oh, I
because
didn't think
he's
about
like-
that.
Because he's like, he blapped, right? He's like, why
Sure.
else would these other two guys show up? Because you went to Spiro and you said these guys are going to plan this robbery, and it's an easy pickings, so you send your own guys in. Is what I took from it.
So he
I don't
goes and he
know-
shoots Turtle, even though, as we've already established, another person on the crew cannot keep his mouth shut
Yeah,
ever.
he's like just the biggest blabbermouth, but they're like, for sure it's Turtle.
The other heist crew shows up at the money vault, and the police have a shootout with them. The Rock takes one guy down, but he's not quite dead, and he's just about to pull his gun and kill the Rock. But then the Rock is saved by Liam Hemsworth. But like even like during this the sequence where the cops are just ready on their stakeout, Liam Hemsworth gets on the phone and he's got to call his buddy and say like, hey man, like it's off. There's something big going on around here. Rock catches him like, hey, what phone call was that?
Yeah, no, Liam Hemsworth is always like suspicious,
He
like in
acts
everything.
so suspicious.
Yeah.
Because also too, they had a clear agreement that it's like, we're not going to come in there until you call us. Just don't fucking call them.
Yeah.
Like, just don't make the call.
I feel like if they didn't call,
Yeah, 'cause that was
Eddie
part of,
would
like-
still come in.
You're right.
because
Eddie probably would.
Eddie
because
always
he's
makes
an
the wrong
idiot.
decisions.
Yeah, he probably would.
But this whole Liam Hemsworth saving The Rock's life or whatever, like, it also leads to nothing. Because The Rock is still suspicious of Liam Hemsworth throughout the rest of the movie. Like, he literally says, thank you for saving my life, but I still
I'm still gonna
think
get ya.
you tried to rob the place.
Yeah.
You are
So
still my prime suspect.
why include this?
But that's everything in the movie. Like,
Yeah.
3/4 of the movie is like, why include this? Why is this even here? Like, why are we even talking about this?
Yeah.
That's what's so fucked up about the entire thing is that, like, I mean, again, like, right off the top, we talked about that statue scene where it's like such a poorly improvised scene. The scene is literally probably about a minute and a half long, and literally all that happens is they put down the statue, which is relevant to the end of the movie.
Yes.
But it's still like, dude, I don't know, like, this is a chance for, like, some character development, right? It's like, let's see what Chris's relationship with his mom through this, or, like, let's get some information about Chris and how he reacts with his family. Like, let's develop character a little through this.
Yeah,
minute
let's
and a half.
develop the character of Nancy.
Yeah,
Or-
let's bring Emma Roberts into this so he
Yeah.
has someone to confide in, or like she's so concerned about this.
There's like a scene later where like Chris and his family are having like dinner around the table, and then right at the tail end of dinner, Eddie lets himself in. He walks over to like the fridge and gives himself a beer, and
swearing his mouth off like.
It's a scene that lets us, the audience, know that like these guys have these guys are basically surrogate brothers. Like this is like their relationship.
Exactly. It tells you
He's
a
the
lot about
annoying friend that like the family puts up with. He's just always been around, and it's like. Great. Could we have seen a scene with them as kids, maybe, or like maybe like a
he helps them out of a jam or
some
something.
shenanigans or something that they got into, or something to sort of like endear us to these characters like a little bit more. But
I would like to know why the dad is indebted to Spiro, or why he's working for him, because they do establish that he was a cop back in Greece, and I guess he immigrated over. Your eyes lit up. Like, do you know why?
It's just the scene is so short.
Is there a reason why the dad can't join the police force?
They don't really get into it.
They don't really get into it, and the one scene with them at Spiro's is so short. The only act we ever see the dad do, he's like fixing a light in the bathroom.
Yeah.
So truly, I don't even know what his job with Spiro was.
It seems
at first
to be
I thought
that
he was
he's just like a fucking handyman.
I thought he was the handyman.
I also thought
Yeah.
that. But that's the thing. Like, he's not doing like illegal shit for Spiro, is he? Right? Like, I didn't get that vibe at all. Like, I legitimately thought that he's like fixing shit around the club.
I don't think he was, because it's like he has like morals. The dad does,
Right,
and
yeah,
like when he thinks Chris is up to something, he's like,
"Come on,
don't,
man.
you don't listen, talk to me."
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
like you're right, Zach. It is a little weird that he gets on Chris's case so much when he thinks that Chris is up to something illegal, but previous to that, he was literally working for a mobster.
For a guy that everybody acknowledges is like
right.
a bad dude.
Except
who
we
does
don't know
illegal
what
shit.
the dad was doing.
And
So
And Liam Hemsworth shows way more concern about his dad working with Spiro, because he goes to like see him at work, and Spiro just goes into the washroom and interrupts like the father-son chat, and almost immediately a brawl starts over something. He says that like, hey, you don't like the way like some guys talk about your dad, and like, we didn't see any of that. Like, hey, where's my dad when he shows up? Like, he's in the washroom. Okay, thanks.
Literally, what happens is that like fucking Spiro is like, hey man, and like claps his dad on the shoulder, and Liam Hemsworth's
Don't you
like,
touch
you
my
don't
dad."
fucking touch my dad.
I can't touch a guy in my own club.
And you know
dude.
what's funny
if
is
anything,
that, like,
Liam Hemsworth gets his dad fired.
yeah,
Yes.
for sure he
for
does.
for
For sure he
overreacting
does.
to the situation.
And like, and not to jump to the end, but like just at the end when they're putting his dad in handcuffs too, it's the same thing where Liam Hemsworth is like, "Hey, don't you fucking hurt my dad!" Like he's so concerned about his
very
dad's
protective.
physical
Yeah, yeah,
welfare.
yeah.
Like he seems to think his dad is like very frail.
Yeah.
like don't
Or-
touch him; he's gonna
or
break.
ill or
so,
something.
yeah,
Yeah.
like he treats him like exactly. Like this is a guy who's like got cancer and is like withering away. He's like, "Don't you fucking touch
He's a
him."
perfectly healthy man.
He's
Yeah.
like a perfectly healthy,
shape,
vitalic
yeah,
man
yeah.
in his 60s.
He's got all
like,
his mental faculties and everything. Yeah,
it's so strange that he's like so weirdly defensive.
and like his dad was a cop. He knows how to handle
Yeah,
himself.
this guy
in
can take
situations
care of
like that.
himself.
Yeah.
Like,
He's more of a cop than you are, Liam Hemsworth.
yeah, exactly.
So the next day following the heist, you would think after there was a police shootout that now the bosses would be like, okay, well, we should really up our game on security. We have to have like more overhead on these sort of
Yeah,
things.
yeah.
What happened last night? No, nothing.
Nothing.
It's just another day at this like poorly run office.
And like
Yeah.
the least amount of security that they have is that every time Liam Hemsworth opens the door to the vault or whatever, which again isn't like a vault door, it's literally like a garage door or whatever. Every time the door opens, someone at a different building gets like an alert, and then they call.
Hey, what was that?
Hey, what was that? It's all like, it was like like it was like a mouse. All right, cool, bye. And it's like there's never any follow-up questions.
That is one thing we forgot to mention is that Liam Hemsworth does like a mini robbery first. He opens the door and he takes out like 25 grand in cash.
Yeah.
And then they kind of party with that money, and Eddie tells everyone that Liam Hemsworth took this money from work.
Tells everyone
Like,
immediately.
immediately.
Including those Colombian gangsters.
Which makes Liam Hemsworth think, well, this is the guy I should partner with when I do more of this.
Yeah.
Also, because it's like, why do they bring in Mike and Turtle either? Like, that doesn't make sense. I'm like, this really isn't a job that requires 4 men. Like, why are you bringing in these other 2 dudes that just seem like they're going to be trouble and are like, involved with this gangster?
You know
like,
what I
it doesn't
think-
make any fucking sense.
You know what I think it is? I think Eddie thinks that Mike and Jimmy are cool because they have like this enforcer job.
Right,
They're flash, like they're paying for breakfast or whatever. It's just
Yeah.
like, boy, I really want to show these guys up. That's why when they go to the club to the VIP, he busts into the VIP room with a bottle of champagne. He's like, compliments to you guys. Hey, if you ever want to loop me in on something, my buddy down there, he's loaded. We got this whole plan schemed out.
Yeah,
We're gonna
He's
steal
got
from him.
ambitions
Yeah.
that far exceed his skill set, and he's trying to make a name for himself. He's trying to be
That-
cock of the walk. Yeah.
That scene when he goes upstairs and talks to Mike and Turtle when they're talking to the Colombians is like a perfect example in the movie of they keep trying to do like these types of scenes that you'd see in like a Scorsese movie, right?
Mhm.
Like, but they're just so far off base in terms of like, because you get done that scene and you're like, what was the fucking point of that? Like, it was actually hard to ascertain like what that scene was in the movie for.
It was setting up the Colombians, which sets up like a drug deal that goes wrong later.
But it's just like so poorly,
it's just another bit of business.
It's such a poorly done version of that scene. The other one that really comes to mind is the scene when the FBI agents come in after the first heist with the police shootout, when those FBI agents come in and they're sort of like interrogating Liam Hemsworth, but The Rock is also there sort of interrogating Liam Hemsworth, and it's sort of that scene like there's the two, you know, that's sort of like obviously there's a bit of tension there because it's like
between
we're like
the
cops,
local
and there's
cops
the
and the
FBI,
FBI,
and the FBI guys seem to think not think a lot of The Rock, and he doesn't think a lot of them, but like. And they're sort of interrogating Liam Hemsworth, but again, it's just like the worst version of that scene that you've ever seen.
You know what?
And it was like so bad. Like I was like, what the fuck is even happening right now? Like it's hard to ascertain what the actual dynamic is because it's so poorly done.
You know what really didn't help that scene? The fact that the main FBI agent kept whispering every single one of his words.
The camera outside's broke, so the only visuals I had were in the money room and the door.
Somebody's coming through the ceiling. That's a brilliant move. Very clever.
Really clever.
Very clever. Tricky. So you got anything else for us, Mr. Batami? Detective Ransom, any more questions?
I think you guys covered everything.
Good. So we're done here, right?
All right, I want to talk about these FBI agents because this
whisper like to the point where like when he's talking, I could tell that The Rock was stifling his laughter, and I don't think that was a character decision. I think that was just like a what the fuck kind of piece of shit did I sign on for?
I will say, wait, can I? Okay, no,
so go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I love these FBI guys so much.
These guys are great. Okay,
my fucking favorite.
Okay, so this is something that I want to talk about because this is one of the weirder little bits of trivia that I found out about this movie, and I have no answer for this. I just think it's like very weird. So these two FBI agents. The main one, the one that you were talking about, the Mr. Whispers, he's played by an actor named Roger Guinevere Smith.
Okay.
Which, you know, not every actor has to have, like, a middle name, but, like, good choice. Good choice going with that.
Yeah.
Because there's plenty of Roger Smiths in the world, but you fucking remember a Guinevere.
Guinevere,
Yeah, exactly.
RGS, baby.
He's a big deal in the theater crowd. He's, like, a very, very well-respected theatrical actor. He's the type of actor that other actors talk about. You know, it's all like, oh man, I saw Roger Guinevere Smith fucking do like Lear and everything like that, changed my fucking life and stuff.
Right.
He's been in movies too. He's in a lot of Spike Lee movies. He's notably in Do the Right Thing. He is like the stuttering guy.
Oh, okay.
If you've seen that.
Yeah.
So he's been in a bunch of stuff. And I liked him in this. I thought it was really cool. He just comes in and it's all like, I'm gonna be fucking cool. I'm gonna act fucking Dwayne Johnson off the fucking screen. I'm just I'm gonna give this like a little more mustard than it needs. But like,
I'm gonna do like these weird head tilts as I move like a snake.
Yeah. Like he's like trying so hard to be like that version of a hard-boiled cop.
Yeah.
And it feels like
I liked it. I liked his little bit.
This whole movie is doing that though. Like this whole movie is trying so hard to be like that kind of crime movie, and it's just like never getting there.
It's very like punching above its weight class.
It really wants to be something that it just isn't, and like can't be.
My favorite tell for something like that is the actual robbery that takes place on that night. Liam Hemsworth hears something upstairs, and at this point I was thinking, are the crooks who run this money vault, are they still around? Are they doing some mafia shit? And like the camera never like reveals what's going on the second floor. We just get Liam Hemsworth's reactions to these audible noises, like, what's going on, and the camera lingers on the ceiling for so long. And then, out of nowhere, someone collapses through the wall, and it's fucking Eddie. Yeah. And all that muttering we heard was just him talking to himself.
It's just Eddie being like, I'm gonna fucking break into this
what
place.
The fuck am I doing crawling through here?
And this comes after Chris has told Eddie, like, we're not robbing this place anymore, and Eddie just goes, fine, I'll rob it myself. I'll just fucking do it myself. And then, like, later that night, he hears Eddie upstairs, like, and he's just like, fucking Eddie, like, what are you doing here?
But those lingering shots of the ceiling wall, like, you can tell something's going on, like people are talking. I thought that was, like, the most Scorsese that this movie could get.
Okay, this is the thing I want to talk about. This is the weird thing. So the one FBI agent is Roger Guinevere Smith. The other FBI agent is played by an actor that I like quite a bit. His name is James Ransone. He's in It's Chapter 2.
Okay.
And he's the star of the Sinister movies. Now, if that name sounds familiar to you...
It's because it's The Rock's
Rock's
character.
it's
character's
the
name.
of the character that The Rock plays in this movie.
Wow, that is weird.
Holy shit.
I don't know how that happened.
Did they like?
I don't know if the screenwriter is
Forgot.
friends with that guy
Yeah.
and then like cast him later on or whatnot, but like it's literally the exact same name.
Maybe he was originally going to play the Rock's part, and then they
They
got
The Rock.
and they're like, "Well, obviously you're getting bumped," and he's like, "Oh," and they're like, "Look, but we'll name the character after you. How about that?
Sure.
We'll give the character
Why
your
not?
name."
I don't
played The
know,
Rock's
like, again, because this is based on a true story, I don't know if, like, the actual cop on the scene was named James Ransone
Yeah,
or whatnot.
I don't know.
Just, like, a very weird coincidence that they cast an actor who's also playing the name. Here's another level to it. Do you remember the name of the character that is The Rock's partner?
Johnson.
Johnson!
Oh, Johnson,
So
yes.
his last name is
Oh.
Johnson, so, like, yeah.
That's weird.
And what's-
Tip of their hat.
That is
Yeah.
weird.
Their star
That's
power.
very
What makes that, like, doubly weird is that actor's last name actually is Johnson.
Wow. Okay,
So
that's
it's
bizarre.
Detectives Johnson and Johnson on the scene. No more tears. I don't know. I just thought.
Johnson and Ransom.
Dude,
Yeah.
I was gonna say about those two FBI agents. I think it was my favorite moment in the entire movie is when they're doing that interrogation scene with The Rock there, and literally the one FBI agent is kind of doing is like gravelly like, and if you're like lying about this, and if you're involved in this, we're gonna get you. And the other FBI agent, I think this might literally be the line. He's like, "Yeah." And that's the only thing he says in that entire interaction is he just goes like, "Yeah," basically, and it's fucking great. I love
And
it.
the only other time we see these FBI agents is
Yeah.
in a scene that's a little bit later that inexplicably
has Rudy
has
Giuliani.
Rudy Giuliani as a character.
Yes, not the actual Rudy Giuliani. Somebody
That would
playing
be
Rudy
hilarious.
Giuliani.
Yeah.
Because he was the district attorney at the time that this
Yeah,
this
that this
heist
took place.
went down. But truly, why is he a character in this?
I know.
Why do we need to check in
It's-
with Rudy
It
Giuliani?
has like a weird bit of world building, and
Yeah.
I thought that people would be like, "Oh, Giuliani." Like this was also made in 2013 before Giuliani
before
was like
he completely
Before he
destroyed
completely-
his public image.
Exactly. So I think that they were maybe like, people are gonna be stoked to see Giuliani in this movie, man. Like I think that's probably what they thought.
It's interesting because when he was the district attorney of New York City, he went after like the 5 major crime families.
Which he does in this movie.
He does in this movie, but like it's on like really like shaky evidence.
Is this movie suggesting that this event was the catalyst that got Rudy Giuliani to crack down on the crime families?
Which it would honestly kind of make sense in a way if that's what they were going for, because otherwise, why does that whole little subplot even exist in the movie?
But if
it
that's
doesn't
the, if,
go anywhere.
If that's implied to be the fallout of what happens, the movie doesn't make it like a very good
No,
argument
it doesn't.
for
It
saying
doesn't.
that that's why that happened.
He's
But you
doing
know
it based on a mistake.
much of like much of this movie, it's like that happens. They're like, okay, we're rounding up the 5 families.
Yeah,
and
and
they
another
just, like,
very Scorsese montage.
They
you
just
know?
show a few shots of like these different gangsters being arrested, and then that's the last we ever hear about that.
Yeah.
like that never comes back in any way. Or is
Giuliani never
relevant,
comes back.
Even
I mean,
slightly.
thank God, but
Yeah, thank God.
So Liam Hemsworth, he can't find Eddie. Eddie is like somehow like absconded with the money, but then like 2 scenes later, like they just happen to run into each other, and
Yeah.
Eddie gives him like his cut of the money that they stole.
forgot to mention that after Eddie crashes through the ceiling, Chris kind of semi helps him with the robbery. As he like opens the gate for him because Eddie is basically just yelling at him to like open the gate or whatever, and Chris is kind of half-heartedly
Helping him out,
because he's
yeah.
just such a wet blanket. He's just like, ah, geez, Eddie, what are we gonna do? And then
Yeah.
he turns his back on Eddie, and then Eddie cold clocks him with the gun.
Yeah.
I guess in part to take the suspicion off of
Yeah.
Chris.
Yeah, because it's like then he's been fucking hit, and it's like, oh, this guy wasn't involved. He was assaulted in the
Yeah.
process.
Right,
of
except
this
for the
robbery.
fact that Liam Hemsworth is the most suspicious person.
Except that he acts so guilty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the security camera catches Eddie wearing a ski mask, but he's clearly talking to someone.
Yeah.
So like now the cops know that he's had an accomplice, and yet Liam Hemsworth, I think, even says like somebody knocked him out. He never says that it was only one person that robs the place.
Yeah, no, that was never discussed. 'Cause
No.
he said he never saw anybody. He said he just got hit,
Mhm.
and that was it.
Yeah, but
So-
the cops figure like, nah. On the footage here, this robber, he's talking to someone. It's gotta be
It's
like
gotta
the night
be-
watchman.
It is weird that they are like right off the hop so suspicious of him all the time. I mean, even from the first robbery when he did nothing wrong, they're like, "You're a part of this, man. We fucking got you pegged."
It's weird that Dwayne Johnson is suspicious of him in the first robbery.
That's what I mean.
It's the
Yeah.
fact that he has been involved in some way with three robberies
robberies.
seemingly within
Now
like the
it's-
same month.
Yeah, within like 2 days, I
Yes.
think. It
Now,
seems like.
now I would be suspicious of Liam Hemsworth.
That's
but
fair.
because Dwayne Johnson comes in so hard,
Yeah.
immediate
top.
off the top.
It's a little strange.
It's just all very samey.
I
Then
mean,
again-
also
then again-
again,
sorry,
Liam
go on.
Hemsworth acts like the guiltiest person ever, so that's a part of it too.
Then again, it is like one money vault that's being targeted at like by multiple parties. If the same place is getting targeted for a robbery, I would assume that just like people are going to get caught in that crossfire. You know, because like again, Liam Hemsworth, he's just like he's an innocent in all of this, as far as Dwayne Johnson should be concerned.
Yeah. The movie also does so much setting the table just to make it clear that like Liam Hemsworth is a good guy. Because they just go through all these lengths to be like, this company's the worst, like they're all really bad people.
He gives
just
the-
to like justify
Yeah.
like Liam Hemsworth robbing it, right? So that you're like, yeah, he's right. He's doing the right thing by robbing.
The
from
first
these
thing he
guys.
does when he steals the money is he gives the widow like her fair share of the of the insurance payout.
Yeah.
Which, when you think about it, could be a movie in it of itself. You know, like this woman, like her husband dies, and then someone shows up on her doorstep one day with an envelope full of money, and then we just spend the entire rest of the movie dealing with like the moral quandary of what to do there,
What do you
because
do with it,
like she's not a character, she doesn't even have any lines, she just takes the money and like walks in, but it's all like there must be some part of her that realizes this is stolen money.
Yeah.
Because my husband worked for like a money laundering place. It wasn't, they don't launder money. That
No.
I still don't know what to call this
No,
place.
I don't know what they do.
Yeah.
And it's like it's
They just
sort of
collect
like-
money and
it's
then, like-
vaguely implied that there's like illegal shit going on, but there's no sort of explanation as to what illegal shit might be
Yeah.
happening.
It's just like a very shitty money vault. I'm sure there are better money vault
Yeah.
establishments in the city. This
But
is just
her-
a poorly run one that they don't do like a financial count or anything.
Yeah.
I don't know why anybody would trust this company.
Well, that's the thing, because they seem to imply that other people are kind of stealing money from the place as well, and like skimming
off
off the top. But
top,
it's like,
yeah.
but this isn't like this is money that's coming from a business or something.
Yeah.
So they're gonna notice when you take it to them, and they're like, "Well, this is short $10,000."
Unless you have like a creative accountant or whatever, and they're moving numbers around and,
Right,
and stuff.
yeah.
But no, like your husband works for a job where he picks up bags of money and takes them to another location, and then he gets killed. And then a week or so after you get this letter saying that you're not going to get the benefits that are promised to you, a random person shows up on your doorstep and just hands you a wad of cash.
Yeah.
9 times out of 10, the person would be all like, no, okay, I'm going to the cops now. I'm
Yeah.
going to the police because I don't want to get tied up in this because this is obviously stolen money.
Yeah.
You know.
So the next thing that I have written in my notes are just plot points. Eddie converses with Mike. The Rock notices Eddie talking to Mike. Rock figures out who Mike is. Cops go to Spiro's bar to question him about Mike. Spiro covers for Mike, and then Spiro questions Mike. That's what I got.
Yeah. And like again, just so many of those scenes that are trying so hard to be like that type of scene. Like the scene where The Rock walks into Spiro's bar is such a bad scene.
Yeah.
Like he just walks in and is like, "Hey," and they're like, "Hey," and he's like, "You that guy?" And he's like, "Yeah." And he's like, "You do this thing?" And Spiro's like, "He didn't." And he's like, "Okay." And then he just walks out. Like the entire scene again, I'm like, you could have cut that whole fucking scene from the movie, basically. You know, like it didn't even need to exist because nothing of relevance really happened in it.
Yeah. But well, now Spiro knows that like something went on without
He does,
his...
but I'm like, you
Yeah.
could get that in like, if just literally Mike could walk into the bar and Spiro could be like, "Hey, what's this I hear about a robbery?" And that you would have gotten to the same place.
Yeah, and
you know?
that scene ends with The Rock walking out of the bar, and then Spiro turns to Mike and he's all like, "Mike, have a seat." And what I was led to believe is like, okay, the next time we see Mike, he's gonna be like tied to a chair, or maybe like Spiro's killed him or whatever.
Yeah.
But like, no, next time we see Mike, he's on the Colombian job with Eddie.
Yeah, doing
and
the
he
Colombian
seems
thing.
totally fine.
And also too that this is because like later, I mean, I'm jumping ahead a little bit again, but like later on we find out that Turtle from Entourage is in
Has
fact
survived.
not
is
dead.
the second person the second character in this that we have assumed has been shot, but turns out nope, they're actually fine.
They're actually
Death
fine.
is meaningless in the Empire
Total
State
underdog,
Universe.
Yeah.
unless you're Tony.
Yeah.
That's why they had to shoot Tony 20
Like,
times.
Yeah, I
yeah.
did write that in my notes. Like, this dude is
That is
taking
the only way.
so many
It's
bullets.
the only fatality
Like
in
he
this.
got
yeah.
shot like
Yeah.
9 times.
But if you get shot once, you'll probably you
But
can walk it off. You can
he
walk
was,
it off.
He was standing until like bullet 8.
Yeah.
And it was like that 8th one where he was like, "Oh," and finally fell over. I was
do
like,
it.
that dude's a tank.
I love how Spiro's goons pick up Liam and they take him to the club, and Spiro says like, "Just relax." He's like, "We got a special guest for you, and I just assume it's going to be his dad that they've also kidnapped.
Yeah.
But no, like the door kicks down and there's Jimmy like shambling on like a corpse. He's got like all these like bandages on
And he
him.
just looks really grumpy.
Yeah.
He just, yeah.
Yeah, because he's in that fucking neck brace all day when they shoot that scene.
And I'm like,
He's like,
what?
oh.
He's alive, and that would be like a fucking amazing twist if this were a better shot, better made movie.
And if we gave a shit about Turtle as a character, like, but also like, but my point of this being that like, so fucking Spiro knows that Jerry's still alive, but yet like, why does Mike just get to keep doing business as usual when it's like, hey, but you tried to kill that other guy that was your partner because he was gonna like you were gonna cut me out of this deal, like you think that would be a problem for Spiro, but he doesn't seem to care.
Turtle is angry at Chris because Chris is the one that like brought this to their
doorstep
attention, but like Chris wasn't the one that planned the heist. It more over than anyone else. It was Eddie and Mike who planned like the minutiae of the heist, and then Turtle took him off. Like if Turtle is mad at anyone, he's mad at the guy that shot him in the fucking neck. He should be
mad at the guy who shot him. Yeah,
but Mike is allowed to go off to this Colombian deal, which also goes tits up for seemingly no reason.
Seemingly no reason.
Like, what are they there to do? Are they there to buy drugs?
They're there to
buy cocaine.
Instead of like drug dealers dealing drugs, they keep the money and threaten them.
Yeah, and Mike gets blown up.
It's a deal that goes like it couldn't have gone better.
Yeah.
Like the deal couldn't have gone better. Like they walk into the room and it's all like, here's the cocaine. Great. Here's the money. Thanks. We will count the money. Great. We have counted the money. You die now. You die now. I showed you. You die now.
Also,
and then
why did you give him $400 back if you're just gonna kill him anyways? That's just a waste of $400.
For your troubles.
To pay the ferryman.
Okay, and this is like
inflation.
This is something that drives me wild in movies too. Is just like shoddy little details about math. Where it's like, okay, so we established pretty firmly that it's roughly $8 million that was stolen, right? 8 to 10, that seems to be said by the FBI people, by these people, blah, blah. So but then they go to the drug deal and they're like, here it is, $8 million. And this is after Eddie has given Liam Hemsworth his half of the money. So I'm like, okay, but this movie seems to establish that it was about $8 million that was stolen. You're now paying $8 million for this cocaine, but you also gave half to Liam Hemsworth. Like, that doesn't add up.
No, it doesn't.
None of that makes any sense.
Well, but it could have been that Eddie only took $8 million for the drug deal, and then the split between him and Chris was significantly more than that. And he only needed $8 million for the drug deal, and he kept the other remainder of the money for himself.
Right.
Is my guess.
I
haven't even been paying attention to split the difference.
I don't think it merely matches. You are right. The math doesn't add up.
It doesn't make sense either way.
Yeah. But you want to talk about shoddy details. There's a moment where The Rock goes to the restaurant that I guess Chris sometime used to moonlight at, so he can go inspect his locker. Eddie.
That's where Eddie works.
Yet another thing that isn't until that moment, I had no idea Eddie worked at that restaurant.
But the shoddy detail I wanted to bring up, did you guys notice the green screen in the window?
No. It doesn't surprise me. It doesn't surprise me at all.
That's hilarious.
I mean, like it's a fucking diner. Just like shoot on location at an actual restaurant at night, and it'll be fine. But no, there's this massive green screen that seems to be around the entire restaurant.
That's hilarious.
And that was never keyed in.
I
love that.
I did not notice that at all.
And then the Rock goes and checks out Eddie's locker, and he looks inside the locker, and the first thing he finds is a piece of paper that's written in crayon and says like, "My plan to rob the bank. Step one."
That was the thing that Liam Hemsworth like wrote out when they were at the diner. But it's like he literally wrote like Empire, Vault.
The only thing that was missing was like a couple of stick figures holding money bags.
Yeah, exactly. And like for good measure, the ski mask and the gun probably should have been in the locker, just to like really drive it home. I'm like, why would you hold on to that after you did that? Like that doesn't make any fucking sense.
So the cops go to his family's place. Liam Hemsworth doesn't want to go like confront the cops, so he just mentions to Nancy, "Hey, the money's in the statue. The money's in the statue."
Which is the
there's
entire
always
reason
money in the banana stand.
Exactly. Which is the entire reason that Emma Roberts is in the movie, I guess. But again, I'm like, that could have been to your mom or your dad.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? You could have been like, that could have been a little aside to your father. Like, again, it blows my mind that Emma Roberts is in this movie, period, because I'm like, you literally serve no function. The only function you serve throughout the entire movie is for him to be the person that you say the money's in the statue to.
Right. And
which again, I'm like,
you could have told that to any character.
You could have told that to any character. And again, I'm like, why would you tell her that? This is not a person that you have a relationship with. This is just some person who lives down the street from you.
She has not been involved in your life
Not at all.
At all.
My only assumption is that this movie was filmed long before it got released. This feels like something that probably sat on the shelf for a while, and it was filmed before Emma Roberts kind of became
Was like more of a
thing.
person.
Yeah, and so like when the time the movie came out, the marketing people were all like, "Oh, Emma Roberts is in there." It was like on the cover,
Yeah.
second build, like before the
Second
credits and
build.
everything like that.
Like-
But yeah, no, she's just an ancillary character, and really it doesn't. You could remove her entirely, and you wouldn't notice that she was gone.
No.
During the shoot, they just like wrote out her scenes or they cut her scenes, and then holy shit, she's actually kind of a big deal. What did we save from the
like,
cutting
what do
room
we
floor?
still have
Yeah.
of her? Because it literally is like off the top of the movie. She has like one conversation with Liam Hemsworth, and then
Where she
later
offers him
on-
an umbrella. I think that's it.
Yeah, when she goes to the diner and she's
She,
like, hey,
she has
how's it
dinner
going?
at his family's house, and then his mom's all like, "She's a nice girl." And it's all like, "Is
I
this a
don't even think
romance?"
she has-
No, I guess
I
not.
don't even think she has dinner because she just like
Yeah.
pops in and is like, "I heard that you were involved in a shootout. Glad to see you're okay." And he's like, "Thanks." And then she leaves, and then that's basically
Time to go to
it
work. Yeah.
until the very end of the movie.
I know
Where, like I said, I love that she pops up and it's like, "You need to tell me what's going on." Like she's someone in his life,
Holy
and it's
shit.
like you're not.
She works at the restaurant that Eddie works at,
Yeah.
and Eddie has to go see the locker. The waitress that shows him the locker isn't even Emma Roberts. It's
No.
the other girl.
Because that's the one that Eddie's like in a relationship with, I guess.
Yeah, but she's even
Oh.
less of a character than
She's
Emma
even
Roberts.
less of a
I
character.
had completely forgotten about both these characters until The Rock went to the diner.
Yeah.
I had forgotten entirely that Eddie has like a fiance or something. I don't think they have any scenes together.
No.
No,
So
I think she's in that scene in the club. The two girls that they're with, because that's the other thing. It would be why wouldn't one of the girls in the club when they go to the club? Why would that not be Emma Roberts? And why wouldn't Liam Hemsworth
This
have a
is
nice
two random-
time
yeah,
with Emma
two
Roberts? And
random
they like
ladies.
have like why would that
Yeah.
not be her? It doesn't make
Two
any
random
fucking
ladies that
sense.
seem to not be having a good time. They seem to be like just really awful people. I mean, I think the only thing any woman ever says to Eddie is that he's a douchebag.
Yeah,
Which
and
is
they're
true
just
because
like-
he is a douchebag.
And they're just like, shut the fuck up, Eddie, you asshole. Like,
So the tremendously anticlimactic ending to this movie is Eddie and Chris kind of have confrontation in like the middle of the street,
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
anyone could walk in, and Eddie really shows his true colors because he points a gun at Chris and he's all like, I lost all. Well, actually, you're right, Zach, because he says I lost
my half."
I lost my half. I lost
Yeah.
all of my half in the drug deal. So you're right. He did put all of his.
yeah,
Mm.
he said he lost it all. Yeah, that's why he comes and asks for more money.
But he would have lost it anyway because he would have had to have gained it back from selling that cocaine.
Yes.
So I guess they had like someone who was gonna buy the cocaine immediately. I don't know. I
Whatever.
don't know
I
anything
think,
about this
yeah,
deal.
I don't know. I guess they were gonna buy a shitload of blow and start selling it. I'm
Yeah.
not totally clear on that.
But then when all hope seems lost, Chris's dad shows up and he shoots
Shoots
Eddie.
Eddie.
The gunfire alerts the cops and like all three of those men are arrested.
Shoots, not kills. That was the other thing that I had a false memory in my head. I could have sworn this movie ended with Eddie getting gunned down. Because, like, why does that character exist if not to be hoisted by his own petard and shot by the cops at the end? I guess it's based on a true story, and if the guy didn't die, then
the guy
obviously
did
you
not
can't
die.
add that into the movie.
Yeah.
But
there are plenty of based on a true story things where they embellish shit like that. It would make for
they usually don't kill a person who didn't get murdered in real
I
life.
mean, that is true. That's a bit of
Like,
true.
they
guess
fudge
so.
things, but most movies don't go that
I don't know.
far.
Have you seen Inglourious Bastards? Just saying.
What? That's not history. That's
Didn't
not how that
happen.
works.
So
No,
believe it or not, that
that's where
actually
the
didn't happen.
timeline splits, man.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
that
it.
was the beginning of the multiverse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It really is. And that's like, again, like, so a little before this, because there's just, again, it's like this movie is so poorly made that things don't make any sense. There's no inciting incident that makes the cops, because that's the scene when Liam Hemsworth comes home and he's like, oh shit, the cops are out front of my house. And that's when he talks to Emma Roberts and then runs away and ends up at his house because the statue's there.
Yeah.
But the cops aren't there now. I don't really get the logic of like how that ended up on the street like that. But the other thing is like, dude, The Rock is like, I think you're guilty. I'm gonna get ya. And there's no gotcha moment. There's no thing where The Rock is like, I put it together. Like, I found the piece of evidence that lets me close the case. They're just sort of like, all right, well, I guess we'll go to his house now and get him.
I guess in theory that's the map or whatever that he found in the locker.
Right.
It's like the piece of evidence where he's
But
all
it
like,
doesn't,
okay,
it
well, there we
doesn't
go.
feel like a gotcha thing where it's
No,
like,
not at all.
now
Yeah.
let's go. Let's get this
through like
guy
good
now.
police
Like,
work, he sussed it out. Like, no, he's got enough evidence now that he can
Well,
go
You know
after
what I
it.
mean? It's like,
They didn't suss it out. They the only reason they figured it out is because these are the dumbest fucking criminals
these guys
on
are
the planet.
fucking awful what they do.
Like, they would have figured it out eventually because because Eddie was walking around just going like, I robbed a place, I have this money. Like, he's telling everyone.
I shot a dog.
and yeah,
That
it's
poor dog. Why they mentioned that they keep the dog in the vault, like in the actual.
Yeah.
Just let that be an office dog. Let him run
I
around.
was like, that poor guy.
Lives
Like,
in the vault.
To what end?
yeah. Also, because the dog seems just generally friendly, so
He's
it's not like
yeah,
he's
it's
gonna
the
do
worst
something
guard dog in the
if
world. He
somebody
can't
comes in
hear
that
it.
way.
He's a big friendly boy.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't
Yeah.
make any sense. Another
Guard
thing-
dog is deaf. Like, what the fuck?
Just another thing. So, like, a scene or two before the whole anticlimactic showdown at the end, Liam Hemsworth is, like, walking around, and these Spyro's guys pick him up. Spiro's guys pick him up. Spyro, jeez, I did it now. Spiro's guys pick him up and take him in. And then they're like, okay, we're going to have a little talk about this money. That's when we show that Turtle is, in fact, alive. And then Spiro's guys seem to, like, maybe rough Liam Hemsworth up a bit, and then just, like, leave him on the side of the road. And are like, give us that money. Get us that money. That's the last we ever hear or see of any of that. I'm like, why is this even in the movie?
Yeah.
Because it's like leading up to this new plot of like, oh, now you also have to deal with Spiro and he wants his cut because he runs these streets. No, we're never going to talk about that again. Like,
Yeah.
that's not a thing.
By all reasoning, his goons should be waiting for him on the outside when he's released from prison.
Yeah, you would think.
Or threatening his family while he's in prison. But I
Yeah.
guess they just like, oh, we'll let bygones be bygones.
Yeah, it's just sort of like, I mean, like so much, you could have practically cut Spiro out of the movie, and it, like, so much of this, you could have cut most of this movie out of the movie, and it would have made no real material difference to, like, what you're watching.
I would have to assume that the reason this movie is the way that it is that it is based on a real event that happened that we get corroborating accounts
They interview
from
the real guy. At
They
the end of
interview. The movie
Yeah.
ends with like an interview with like the real guy,
Yeah.
and like to this day he says like, I don't know where the money went, and it's all like, okay, buddy.
And he's very, like,
yeah, he's very coy about it.
It's
Exactly,
very much
like
that
yeah.
Catherine Hahn winking meme.
Right.
Yeah.
So like the screenwriter of this, must have talked to like the guy and like wrote a story or because there's no credit in the credits that says like based on a book by this guy who
Yeah.
like wrote the thing. It's just like a
Based
first-hand
on-
account. It's an original screenplay just based on a first-hand account of like this thing that actually happened. I guess he talked to the guy, but the problem is like the real event probably wasn't movie worthy. Like it wasn't like worth
Yeah.
a movie, and like he tried to like create
And
some
embellish
drama
it or, like,
around it,
yeah.
but like ultimately when you break it down, it's all like there was this money. These people wanted the money. They took the money, and then they got caught. And
Yeah.
some of the money never got recovered.
Yeah.
That's what you're basing
That's
your movie
pretty much
around,
it.
and it's not enough.
And-
it's very flimsy based an
But
entire
like-
movie just
like
around
you
that.
Said, I think there could have been a good movie in this. Like, if
Absolutely.
they really leaned into the thing that it's like the whole point of this is that these are fucking idiots who are trying to pull off this heist. Like, if they had really leaned into that, but the movie's kind of neither nor. It doesn't really lean into that. It kind of at times tries to be like you said, like a Scorsese type film. It can't accomplish that goal.
No.
It just can't. But it like the movie doesn't even know what it wants to be, and it's like because the story is kind of thin. It's like I think you really need to know like what story you're telling in that way of like is that the point of this, that these are like dumb idiots who are trying to pull off a heist and they're not capable? Is it supposed to be funny? Like it's not really any of the things.
I would also have to assume that the real life Chris Patamas
Doesn't look like Liam Hemsworth.
Well, also that.
look like
Also, we didn't mention the fact I think that his last name is Patamas, but everyone calls him Potamus, which was pretty funny because it makes me think of the character from Harvey Birdman. I would have to assume that the real life guy didn't want to look like a moron on film,
Right.
And by
the
that
rights.
respect, they failed because he looks like a big dum dum the
Not only
entire
does he
time.
look like a dum-dum, he's
Yeah.
just boring. My
Yeah.
God, Liam Hemsworth is bad in this movie.
The only time, like, I thought his performance worked at all is literally the very last time we see him, and he's getting hauled away in handcuffs by The Rock, and he's just going, I fucked up. I fucked everything up. And it's like, that's the only time I believe you, Liam Hemsworth, right there.
Yeah.
It's like, that's the best bit of acting you've done in this, is just the guy who's just all like, this was all fucked. I fucked it all up. I'm sorry.
It's so much,
don't
like,
touch my dad!
Yeah,
don't
like,
touch him!
that
I'm
scene-
sorry, Dad, I fucked that up!
It's like, there's like a minute of time when
Yeah.
when they're being put in cuffs where literally he just keeps yelling like, "Don't touch my dad! Don't you touch him!" And The Rock is just going like, "Settle down, settle down. Hey, take
Yeah.
it easy, take it easy, take it easy, take it easy." And they do that for like a full minute, and
Yeah.
you know that it's like an improvised scene that is just like these are not people who have the ability to like improvise dialogue. Clearly,
Hey, you fuck, hey, what?
Off, hands off. Hands off.
Hey, it's my fucking
Hands
fight.
off.
Don't you fucking hurt me.
Hey, Chris, no. Hey, take it easy. Hey, Johnson, take it easy.
All
There
right.
we go. That was Empire State.
Yeah.
Anything else we want to mention that we haven't covered?
I wrote in my notes, I'm like, we're done trying to make Liam Hemsworth a thing, right?
Fully.
Like,
I
I
feel
think we're
like
done.
his last kick of the can was Independence Day Resurgence.
Oh, God.
Oh, wow.
I
And
never saw that.
and
but-
then I think people remember that movie came out. I guarantee you, people do not remember he is the star of that movie.
The movie sucked. First
That
of all.
movie's terrible, and he's bad in it. And I feel like I feel like we are at the point now where we are fully done with trying to make Liam Hemsworth a thing because we already have a successful Hemsworth.
And he's great.
We really don't need
This is great.
another one of them because
No.
this one is working perfectly fine.
And, like, this one, this model works fine.
Why do I
There's
need
no
a new
reason.
Hemsworth? This Hemsworth's working great.
Exactly. And, like, Chris is legitimately good and charming and funny and, like, a good actor. And Liam Hemsworth is just fucking brutal.
He's never done anything.
He's the little
good,
brother,
right?
He's
Yeah,
the
yeah.
little
No,
brother
I don't.
syndrome.
Has he done anything?
He's not good in the Hunger Games, or at the very least, he's not memorable in the Hunger Games.
Didn't even remember he was in them.
He's like he's like the Jacob. He's like the second. He's like the third part of the love triangle in that. But no one fucking. I don't know.
Couldn't even-
I don't know. People are bigger fans of the Hunger Games than I am. Maybe they have different opinions on him. But I found him wooden and uninteresting.
God, he was
and
the
he's
worst.
done like a handful of like small little indie projects. But other than that, yeah, I think we're fully done with trying to make Liam Hemsworth
And
a
I'm
thing.
like, good riddance.
Yeah.
You know, just be handsome and like you're.
Isn't
probably-
that enough for you?
Yeah, you're
Just be
incredibly
rich and
good
handsome,
looking.
you fuck.
Yeah, is that not enough?
Why do you got to torture us with your
And,
acting?
exactly. Like, I'm sure you're never gonna want for money. Your brother's this huge movie star. He can, I don't know, float you money to run a fucking.
just go
smoothie
back to
bar or
Australia
something.
and just make like small little Australian dramas.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
Be
obviously.
like a fine Australian actor.
One thing that I wanted to mention was the only reminder and tip that we had that this movie was set in the 80s was that The Rock's cop partner always wore headphones. He always had a
Yeah.
Walkman on, and he was never listening to The Rock, or like he was always distracted because he's listening to his.
That was the
tunes.
other thing I was going to bring up. Yeah, Dwayne Johnson's partner in the movie is
Johnson.
named Johnson, and he likes bodybuilding.
Yeah.
It's like because there's like a weird scene where like in the middle they're like investigating the break-in and whatever, and Johnson just sees like a set of
a weight
weights.
set, yeah.
So like, you mind if I do a few reps?
Yeah,
so like,
yeah,
aren't
he's
you
just
like
like-
investigating a crime?
Yeah, that you
Yeah.
think that this guy is like a part of.
All right, I'm gonna. All right, well, I'm the only cop left in the room with you. I'm gonna just turn my back on you, put my headphones on, and distract myself
just,
with some
like,
weights.
yeah, pump some
if you
iron.
want to don't make a phone call while my back's
He
turned
does-
though.
it's so
Like-
stupid. It's so dumb.
He's almost a character. He's
Yeah.
almost an interesting character with like business or whatever, but not quite because this movie never goes that far.
I also thought that his partner Johnson just like he had a weird, I don't know if it was an accent
I
or
think-
like an affectation he was going for, but it was like very strange when he would talk.
I thought it was like a New Orleans accent.
Is that what he was going for?
I think so. He's from
Okay.
Louisiana.
Do you know what that actor's first name is?
What, Dwayne?
Lucky.
Lucky
Johnson.
Lucky Johnson.
boy.
That's just fun.
That's just
That
I
does
don't
not,
have-
that's
I don't-
not a real name.
I-
That's an alias.
That's what it
That
says
is-
on IMDb. That's what he's credited
that is
as.
a porn name.
Yeah.
Lucky Johnson.
Oh, my
Detective Lucky Johnson.
Well, I know for certain that my Johnson's gotten lucky a couple of times.
Okay. All
Okay.
right.
Ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba.
So, Empire State.
Mm.
Do we think this movie has a certain something, or is it just a whole lot of nothing?
Oh, it's a whole lot of nothing. It's not. Do you know what? It's not even like. It really wasn't even fun bad for the most part.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it was just bad. Like it's just like, and it's it's not even that level of bad that's got the earnestness like The Room or something like that, and it's not like that kind of bad B movie like a Sharknado kind of thing which can be fun. It's just like a very poorly made movie.
It's a term that I throw around a lot now on this podcast. It is anonymous. Barely exists as
Yeah.
a movie. You sit down, you watch
Yeah.
it, and I'm all like, did I watch that?
Yeah.
Did that happen? Did
You're like,
things
I
happen?
guess.
And it just raises the question, why was this made?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why
Not a
did
clue.
Dwayne Johnson, seemingly in the apex of his career, cresting and becoming like the megastar that he would be, why did he agree to do this tiny little movie with a tiny little supporting role that he doesn't even get anything much to like to chew on or anything?
No.
He's played cops before. Like, this really feels like an early
Yeah.
Hobbs movie because he's not doing anything different than he does in those movies.
And honestly, like I kind of thought he wasn't very good in this movie.
He's horribly miscast.
Yeah.
He's terribly
He's
miscast.
very distracting.
Because I think
He
when
keeps,
The Rock,
yeah, he keeps doing that like super charming, like why does the sky smile of his?
Well, I feel like he's trying to be charming in this movie and he's not. There's like, you know, like when The Rock is good and is doing his best is when he is like charming. And I feel like he's trying to do his charming thing here, but in a character that holds no charm, is written with no charm. And yeah, I'm just like, oh, you're just kind of bad. and middle of the road in this.
Well, if you don't give Dwayne Johnson anything to do, he doesn't have like a lot. All he has to rely on is his charm. You need to actually give him a character and something to work with.
Yeah, but also to this entire movie, I feel like outside of Eddie, I don't feel like there is a single like character in the movie. Like Eddie is the only person who I get a sense of like who this guy is.
Michael Angarano as an actor, I think, deserves better.
Yeah.
He's a kid actor. He's one of those guys that like he started acting really young, and so I think he's like in his 30s like us, but you look at his IMDb, he has like close to like 80 credits now, just because he just like worked a ton. But he's an actor. Every time he pops up, I enjoy him and stuff. He's good in this. He rises to the material, and he gives the overall best. He probably should have been credited on the poster.
Yeah.
He's probably super chuffed that this movie that he is ostensibly the second lead of, Emma Roberts ousted him on the...
And he is, like, elevating this. You know what I mean? Like, truly. Like, he's the only person... I think the only other person who I think kind of elevates it and gives a good performance is Paul Ben-Victor.
Yeah.
I think he's good as well.
Good dad role stuff. Yeah.
And he's got that sort of, like, dad gravitas, and you can tell, like, even though he ostensibly works for the
That's
bad
just a funny
guy...
term, sorry.
Dad
gravitas.
He's got that dad-vitas. And, like, even though he works for the bad guy, you get the sense that this is, like, you really get the sense that this is, like, a man with, like, high morals and, like,
he's
you know...
principled
this,
man,
like, exactly. And he, like, actually portrays that despite the fact that there's zero character development. I mean, every character in this movie is underwritten.
The only element about this movie that makes it remotely interesting is that when was the last time you saw a movie about Greek characters where they weren't, like, raging stereotypes smothered with tzatziki? You know, like, but it's like they're just like regular people in this.
Yeah, some of them are and some of them aren't.
Sure, but also it's just like they're just like you're hanging out with people from a culture, but that culture isn't being shoved down your throat to the point where you could watch this movie and then try to recall it later and mistakenly think like I did, oh, that's a movie about like Italian Americans, and you would just like forget entirely. Like the whole Greekness of these characters is so underplayed, it's almost non-existent.
Yeah. Like I said, the movie's all over the place just tonally and in its world, because that first scene when they come in and it's like everyone's hanging out on the streets, it feels very like 1960s almost.
Yeah.
That sort of time before, like
you
a more
expect Be My
time
Baby to start playing in the background.
Yeah, like, and then later on in the movie too, because it's like, it feels all over the place. It doesn't feel set in 1980. It feels like it's set 1960 to 2000. Because also The Rock, it looks like The Rock is wearing very much just like something you'd see him wear in any movie that's set currently.
He's
like,
wearing a wristwatch that is not period accurate.
G-Shock? Yeah, I noticed that with that G-Shock.
That is a fully 2013 watch that he is wearing in this movie.
I noticed that G-Shock. I was like, that's The Rock's watch. He wore that from home, and they were like, take it off the shot. And he was like, no,
it's not happening.
No, it's not. Like I said, I think The Rock did this movie because they probably paid him $1 million, and he was probably on set for 5 days. Yeah. And he was like,
if I had to guess, The Rock probably shot this movie right before he shot Fast 5. And then this sat on the shelf, and it came out after Fast 5 came out. And by this point, watching The Rock play a cop character like this is just kind of pointless, because we've seen him play this role already in like a more successful, bigger, louder movie. Totally. So it's kind of like, what was the point of this? Truly, what was the point? Of Empire State?
I think
it has no point.
The premise of a bunch of idiots pulling off a heist, it has the makings for a fun movie.
I mean, there's several great movies that
like
have
Masterminds is like pretty much the exact same thing, based on a true story. Bunch of like idiots pull off a bank heist, a money truck heist. Yeah, you know, in the hands of a more capable director. There's an interesting story, I think, that could be done here, or at least like an interesting idea. Maybe you don't have to follow like the true story to the letter. But I don't know. No, this movie is it's lame. It's not even to the point of like, it's fine. I can't recommend this movie.
I absolutely could not recommend that somebody spend time and watch it.
Jameson, how does it feel to be the only person in 2022 that remembers the movie Masterminds? I didn't remember that fucking movie until you brought it up.
That movie's only a few years old, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like,
that's another movie that sat on the shelf for years before it finally got released. Yeah. Zach! Thanks for hanging out with us and watching this very forgettable movie. Thank you for joining us for WrestleMania.
Absolutely.
Your first WrestleMania. How do you feel?
It feels great. Actually, no. If this is WrestleMania, it doesn't feel great. But you know, it's funny because you were like, we can do this the Dwayne Johnson movie, or we can do these 3 Dave Bautista movies. And I just like afterwards, I'm like, what could have been? Maybe those Dave Bautista movies were good. I'm gonna have to watch them now.
Grass is always greener.
Who knows? Who truly knows? Because right now I'm cycling through 3 potential Batista movies that we could watch.
Yeah.
And I haven't figured out which one we're going to watch yet. I will say one of them is called Heist. And I feel like maybe after this, maybe I'll take that one off of the possibility, just because we don't really need to do two back-to-back
like,
heist
terrible
movies.
Compare and contrast. That's not really fair to Empire States. If it's better,
I mean, who knows?
It might not be fair to Heist.
It might not be fair to Heist. Like, who knows? We could say.
But like,
yeah.
how could it be worse than Empire State?
Do you know what? Also, too, this is like
Shit, maybe we'll do Heist now. I don't know. Maybe.
I don't know.
the hubris of naming your movie Empire State. Like, just because that's so synonymous, like New York, there's Empire State of Mind. There's all these great songs and movies about that, and I'm like, you fucking arrogant pricks.
When you search for this movie on Amazon Prime, Empire State of Mind comes up before anything else. That's not even a movie.
Isn't there a TV show called Empire as well?
Yes,
Like about a
the
record
Terrence
company or
Howard,
something?
Taraji one.
Fuck,
Yeah,
I could have sworn there was already a movie called Empire.
there's lots of movies called
Yeah,
Empire. Yeah, that's a
No, Empire State.
There's probably
Oh.
another one. I don't know.
possibly. I don't know. It's a very generic. It's a generic title for a generic movie, and that was the episode on Empire State.
It certainly was.
Directed by Dito Montiel. If you enjoyed this episode, please check out our past podcast, The Fuck Is This, which is available on the platform that you're listening to this on right now. Just click back and scroll down, and you'll see all the episodes there. It's much like this show, except it's a little less focused on specific actors. It's just kind of focused on the regular movies. But we have past WrestleMania episodes on that too. So if you want to hear our takes on other wrestler-based movies, we can also do that. If you're listening to this on Spotify, but you wish you had a slightly more visual element to the podcast, you can check us out on YouTube, where Jameson adds all of these images and stills from the movie. We would like to
Lucky
thank
me, I get to rewatch Empire State, tracking down some screenshots.
we would like to thank Eddie Lamb for his fantastic theme music. Just to close things off on a somewhat somber note, I didn't want this podcast to end without referencing the passing of a fantastic Vancouver institution, Black Dog Video,
Ah, yes.
which has reported earlier this week that after decades in business, it will be closing its doors. I'm quite gutted by this news. Jameson, you shared this news with me, and
I knew you would be
really
affected.
ruined the entirety of my day. Not your fault. I would have found out somewhat sooner than later. But as a Vancouver-based movie podcast, we can't let that passing go without
It'll be missed.
some sort of recognition. So R.I.P. Black Dog, you provided us with a bunch of references for the movies that we've watched on this show. I will have to make an attempt to go before you close and try and
Get to that fire sale, man.
get a bunch of that stock. And hopefully I can get the weird ones before other people snap them up. But yeah, that's a big bummer. But anyway, we love you, Black Dog. Thank you for all the business that you did. Check out their podcast if they're gonna. Hopefully they continue their podcast. It'll just be named after a business that doesn't exist anymore. But yes, thank you for listening to our podcast. I'm Kaz.
Yeah, I'm Jameson. Kaz, what are you doing later today? Are you up to something? Are you got somewhere to be?
Are you gonna say it doesn't?
It doesn't matter.
Right.
All right.
All right. Cool.
Okay.
Did you want to know?
No,
Or,
I wanted
you
to
just
set
wanted
you
to
up so I
suck
can
that
say
up.
it doesn't matter what you're doing.
Well, now I feel bad about myself.
Yeah.
Jameson doesn't like me.